Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and thanks for stopping by. Welcome to Starbase Weekly, the RGV aerial deep dive into images he captured from the ground and air in Boca Chica, Texas. Our dedicated team will guide you through with the latest updates and theories at Starbase, Texas. The channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for future streams.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Starbase Weekly. This is episode 67 and my name is Mauricio. I'll pass it along to Indian Star.
Welcome, everybody. We're excited to see you. Hope you're excited to see us. I'll pass it over. Pass it over to Dave.
And welcome, everybody. This should be a really exciting week. SpaceX is really cranking up their activity. Lots of stuff happening in the last couple of days, and I will pass it over to Zach.
Well, hello, everybody. Happy Saturday. Good to be with you all today. We are getting super close to this launch. Finally, we have Booster 7 on the launch pad, and Ship 24 just moved over last night, so we're getting close. And I'm really excited to finally start that countdown. So I'll pass this off to Thomas.
Thank you. It's going to be a wonderful day here of going through images. So strap in. We've got plenty to talk about. First off, we'll just jump right in over to our first section, Massey's. Pretty much our fan favorite, I think, to start off with. It goes in order, but it's always the place that has the most things happening each week. Changes are always welcome, of course. So first off, is there any subject that anybody wants to talk about directly off of Massey's to begin with, or do you just want to go from left to right, like bottom to top kind of stuff?
Can we start with speculation? I just have a little speculation. It probably won't happen like this, but so Ship 25 has been sitting there for quite a while, and I've been thinking that ideally they may want to start doing like cryo testing on Ship 27 soon. So I would not be surprised if Ship 25 moved to the Rocket Garden where Ship 24 was, and then Ship 27 comes out here so they can do the initial cryo testing. There is a possibility that they could do it at the launch site, but I highly doubt that they would do that. I take that back because they kind of need to do the puck shocking test. So maybe it will happen like that, but just throwing my crow out there for some movement that we may see coming up here.
Well, that's a pretty good idea to talk about to begin with here. you do have the puck checking test that kind of throws a little bit of a wrench in the works. But one thing that we do know is that this is a cryo station. We know that this is going to be the nitrogen side, the lock side. So they will be able to do cryo tests here. And they have actually done a cryo test on Ship 24 while it's been sitting here. We got a quick sneak peek of that, I think, was it last week here? So it's just kind of interesting to see the progress and the rapid cadence that they've made at Massey's just from a couple of months back. Most of that wasn't there. It's just a few of these tanks. These guys were probably sitting here, but we've got more vaporizers. We have a lot more stuff that's appeared just to make sure that we have a system like this functional now. So they have at least commissioned this part of the system, but going through and testing out Ship 24 for its test flight takes precedence. So they will obviously not touch the cryo stations at the orbital pad or anything like that. However, having a ship over, let's say pad A, after the test flight, I could see them do some puck shucking with, let's say, Ship 27, and then bring it over here while they go through and start testing boosters and going through doing the whole routine there. So they need to do cryo conditioning, which would basically be what we have here. That's one of the steps that they would do. But this is an area that they do not have filled in yet, which I'm expecting and hoping that they will move into the booster area pretty soon. Just to do that. But that would be like booster 9 or 10 to go through and do some of that.
Right.
So I guess we'll go right to left, if that works.
Yeah, let's do it.
So started off, we do have a new bit of construction over here. Obviously, you can see that they're pouring concrete right there. But this section here, let me get a little bit better of an image, is the new little, I believe it is going to be a substation. So they've got basically buried conduit and power lines that will be coming in here. And they've already have a small power line that was coming in. Went directly to just a small little, what are they called? Just a panel with a meter on it and that kind of stuff. But it was for a pre-existing building that was the former Massey site. There was actually a building that was kind of like a house right here. But the rest of it's basically been removed, and all that's left now is what would have basically been power coming in. So this is the power lines that come in this way, and I believe they go down and then over to this direction over here, and they may have already got into this particular conduit line. They may have found it and are using that and just have the power cut off for these utility lines. But the weird part is, like right now, looks like to be a 2-phase power. Maybe there's a third line in the middle, but I think it's only just 2-phase.
Actually, I think it's only single phase, Thomas.
Only single?
Yep.
Okay.
Power and return, just like your house.
Well, that's very lacking for a facility of this size with the number of systems that they have and pumps that they need to utilize, especially over in this area. And I think there's a couple of pumps over in this area as well. But yeah, they need a lot of power, and just 1 phase would not be nearly enough.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the original Massey's feed would just stay single phase, just typical, same as Rocket Ranch and everybody else. It's typical consumer feed, not your industrial feed.
Yeah. Well, they do have that new 3-phase power coming in on those new power lines, and that's going to be kind of exciting because we have spotted a lot more construction going on over at the build site, for instance, using that 3-phase. But this one, not quite yet. We need to see these poles either be replaced or new lines strung for that 3-phase. So it'll be a little bit more until we get there. We do have a new little shed that's popped up. I don't think we mentioned this last week if it was there. It's here now. So it's just kind of neat to see that we have new structures and buildings coming into place. So this obviously is a storage area, but they've been using this area in between here and then this one especially for welding. This was welding, now I think it's just storage, and this is I guess you'd say, welding tent with the shipping containers as windbreaks, and they actually have this little structure just to do welding specifically. So all the pipe work and everything else that's going to be taking place for that second stand for the booster will be perfect for that. Let me actually jump over back to that area since we're bringing that up. So they do actually have a new concrete pad that was here last week, and then they added a bit more concrete right here, and I think a little bit in the back as well. So they're kind of flushing this out. So now they have a nice bit of room to put all their stuff while they do construction on the new area over here. So this is the basically the new booster cryo pad. You can see that they actually have a little bit of area marked right here to say don't drive right here. This is our kind of our marking spot to designate where rebar is sticking through. So don't drive over it. You're going to puncture your tires. Then they've got a marker over here. I guess that's going to be their main source of actually pointing out where all the location of everything underground should be.
Hey, what's up with those tiles missing on ship 25?
Yeah, that's a weird one. We talked about this a little bit last night. So this is about the 6 foot mark. So that's about the same height as the weld line for the 2 pieces of rings. So there's a ring every 6 feet. So you start from here, go up here. This is about 6 feet. So this could be for checking the weld doublers, the new weld doublers that they have installed ever since, let's say, ship 24. They had weld doublers installed in that section, and they even removed a lot more tiles down here, which that one I don't know about. I've seen that they've had tiles missing before at the bottom, but not quite like this. So this has all been removed, and I'm expecting they're probably just going to glue them back down or something. But any other ideas, Zach or Dave?
I don't.
I was thinking that maybe the RVAC mount points, but they're actually higher up than that, I believe.
Yeah, they'd be like up here.
Struts. Yeah. I'm not really sure on that one. I just noticed that this morning, so it's kind of weird. But they are the RVACs. I forget it's 1 in the front, 2 in the back, right? Or is it the opposite?
It's 2 in the back, 1 in the front, if I remember right, because you have the QD with all the lines coming in. So if you have the RVAC right there, it'd be actually shoot. It's high enough that the QD stuff is coming in at the correct level, and it's just hitting closer to the power head. But they did move the QD panel down because of the RVAC. So I do think the RVACs are sitting there. Now that you mention it.
Yeah, I think it's 1 in the front, 2 in the back. Okay, sorry. Ignore what I was saying there then. But yeah, I don't know. It's a bit odd. I mean, I wish Jax was here to kind of throw his 2 cents in on this one. But actually, yesterday was Jax's birthday, so happy belated birthday, Jax, even though I did say it on time, but the rest of you are belated. And hopefully he's actually out there enjoying his birthday today. So, yeah, but with that being said, I'm actually thinking that the ring section right there is a little bit higher up than where those lines are.
Let's see if I've got a good scale. So here's a person. So a person's about going to be 5 feet something.
Well, there's people on the lift over there.
Oh, wow. I missed them. But let me just zoom out a little bit. I'm going to use my mouse as a nice little scale. So that puts it in the right range, but it's a little low, it seems.
It looks to me like they're about 2/3 of the way up the bottom ring.
Wonder if it's another mount that we're thinking of then. Maybe not for... Well, there is the lower ring, which goes at the bottom down here. I don't know if there's anything up in the middle. I'm trying to conjure up any memories of like what parts are holding it together right there, and I don't remember any engine parts at that lower section. It's down here at the bottom, and then further up.
Yeah, I'm sitting here searching for aft section renders.
Well, I did this. I did the same thing, trying to remember which engine mount is in which spot, and I keep getting boosters. So it's been a while since I've looked at the bottom of a Starship, and I keep getting the old like Mark I design with the what are those called? Never mind. I guess they're just cargo areas, but let's see if I can actually show you. Yeah, so that's what I keep getting is this kind of stuff. I'm like,
that's what I looked up too. I was like, I don't know if that's a good reference.
It's a terrible reference. It's got extra grid fins, the wrong spots. It's old, but it's beautiful. It's just old. It's a classic. So, I didn't actually notice this. We were talking a bit about basically yellow ballards yesterday in a different area. These aren't ballards. These just look to be something else like clamps or something. Maybe they're setting up a little bit of a stand because I see the rest of this is all getting put together here. But we were talking about ballards yesterday, and specifically these two and this area right here. It's not a ballard. This is being protected by the two ballards here and here. And that was kind of a new little like, oh, what's this? And it seems to be that they have a line running through here that would basically have a vent. So that's basically a vent to a pipeline. So it's an open pipeline, and then there's a pipe inside that actually holds the contents of something, of what I'm not exactly sure. But I did remember that we had, let's say, power distribution, I thought, going around the entire perimeter, kind of in a shape of a horseshoe. But I don't see any vaults or anything in here to indicate that. So maybe I'm just misremembering where they had it laid out. But that was kind of interesting. Also, another interesting little piece down here is these two little like half circles that they had basically over for the, let's say there was a large berm that was at the launch site, that these would basically allow a pass through from one side to the other. So for basically the corner of the tank farm to closer to the cryo station area. But the cryo station area came about, and these were in the way, as well as the berm just was never going to, it was going to be changing the angle, so it was at 90-degree angle. So they brought it over here, and now it's in two pieces, and it looks like they're going to be using it for windbreak. So that's just kind of a neat little tidbit. They've been going through and roofing this area, so there is a ring inside, a very unusual ring that it looks like it's for structural testing. But yeah, it's just kind of odd that they still have the roof like that. They basically built the roof on the sides.
Yeah, I don't think that's a normal roof. I think that they set this up so they can lift that ring in and out through where that fabric roof is, without any framing members in it. Normally for a tent like this, the frame would go in first, and then you stretch the fabric over it, which is what they did on the end. There's something very unusual about this area over here. Also, there's a rock and roll type road box sitting there. That's just a welding gas.
This right here?
Yeah, and there's 4 welders there with it. So I think they built themselves a nice little windshielded welding thing here that they can lift ring stands in and out of.
I think you're right that they are building a ring stand, but I think it's for a structural test of some sort. I mean, this is I guess you could say Massey's testing site. That's all about what they're doing here is testing, more testing.
Also, that container there looks like it's a portable office almost.
This one right here. Oh, this one right here?
No, the blue one. Yeah, it's got 2 air conditioners on the roof. And
this used to be at the ground fabrications building. It had those nice silver panels on it. It made it look like the crew access arm from 39A. And it had like these angles coming off of it in really weird ways next to the windows. But this was there, and it was on some stands. It's been basically have all those panels removed, and it's off the stands. It was brought here a while back. I think it's been in this tent for a while now, and they brought it out, and now they've got other stuff in the tent. So they've put racks and other things in here. So it's being used for storage, but I think it's using it for the test site. So again, everything is test site related now, except for just this little area back over here in this corner, which is all about fresh water. Speaking of testing, this basically is a test tank that would basically be a burst test, but we still haven't seen anything new from it, except I do see we've got looks like a pump down here instead of over here, which is kind of an odd place for it. Maybe I've got a better angle from the other side here. Nope, that's not a pump, that's just a scissors lift. So it's kind of odd that they had a pump just sitting right here, and it had water.
It looks like the hose is still going through that dirt berm. It ends up right by the bottom of the first HESCO bin.
Right there?
Yep.
Let me see if I got a slightly better image here. Let's see here. It'll take a second. I'm looking around, just trying to find an area that's close to that. This one will be better. I don't quite see it, but I do remember there was a pipe going through the dirt. They basically put the dirt right on the pipe, so it should be right there.
Yeah, it was just a hose. It was just a hose there.
Yeah, it's also interesting and unusual is that they have a T-joint right here, so they could run a cryo pipe over here, so they could do a cryo test, but water is also a viable option as well.
The only thing is the hose running up to the bottom of the tank does not look like cryo hose.
I thought it was just a flex hose like we normally have for cryo hose.
I think it's just high pressure rubber.
Okay, so let me just double check in this one real quick. Because yeah, if it's silver, that's kind of a black color. So yeah, that would just be a rubber hose. So I would expect even a rubber hose to have a bit of a stainless steel backing or something to help keep it from getting all messed up and mangled, but I guess that works. Or even a fire hose would work as well, because they can take a lot of pressure too. But looks like they have a rubber hose there. All right, so what else do we have at the Massey's testing site here?
The nose cone.
Yeah, that's a big one. So this is the nose cone we're talking about, so you kind of get a good layout here. And this is one of those.
They've tested it yet, right?
So far, I'd say no to testing, but I do see slight dents appearing here and there that aren't anything overly stressful, but nothing that I can tell that says, oh, we've tested this to closer to the limits of what we saw on like nose cone 12. Nose cone 12 was dented all over the place. This doesn't quite look like that. They tested a nose cone 12 on May 4th. I was standing across the street when I saw that thing happen, so I could remember that. But the interesting part was they removed it, I think, on the 6th or the 7th. So it really went through a quick iteration testing before it was brought back and then scrapped. I almost kind of expect to see that as well with this nose cone if they're going to do the same thing here. This would be another good view for seeing the top of the nose cone, because you're looking for really any dents or divots that would basically be from pushing and pulling from the X or Y direction at the top of the nose cone there.
I'm also trying to decide if that, in that image, and this one too, if that whatever's covered in plastic on the catwalk up there is going to still be covered in plastic when they test, or if that's an indication that they're not quite ready, or they're already got some electronics up there that they're weatherproofing.
You're cutting off at the end of what you're saying there. Each time you were talking, Dave, can you repeat that again?
I'm wondering if that might be a either piece of electronics or something up there that they're weatherproofing, or if that's just something they haven't installed yet.
I see something not connected right here, but I do think you're right that this is kind of more of a weatherproofing. So this would probably be for testing. They've got a camera up here. Probably have some other cameras around, but I think you're right that they're not quite testing it yet, because I don't see much of anything that would be like an obvious testing. Like I can only just see minor dents here and there, which are about the same as you would see on a normal nose cone anyways.
Jack says at the bottom, the with the hatch being open, that it was previously closed. So it could be a sign that they've actually done the tests if they're like in there evaluating stuff.
We've seen the same thing on ships as well, though, where they've gone in and out of the ship to work on what's inside. But also would indicate possibly if there's hydraulic issues on the inside that they need to adjust the hydraulics there, find a leak or whatever is going on.
I don't even know if they need that hatch. Really, can they get in from underneath? Because it's all open.
No, it's not open underneath. It's got a plate all around, and then it's all welded down.
It's got that support plate, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just a hexagonal white support plate. But yeah, they should have the hatch there for structural reasons. The hatch does add basically like 8 millimeters of steel strength, and it's all bolted down everywhere so that it will help reduce the stresses. And this is actually brings it up to about 8 millimeters as well, where you see the weld lines.
Yeah, they also have stringers on the back side of it as well.
Yeah, they really don't care about this being tested. They want to make sure that this is not part of the test, that this is the test. So that's where they have all of these sensors really is. You don't see them on this side. It was basically the other side, but they're all basically from this level up with all the strain gauges. So they're really concerned about the nose cone itself and mostly the other side. So I kind of suspect that if we're going to see dents, it might be on that side because they might be pushing it a little bit harder over there. So some people were asking questions yesterday. I'll just repeat the question and answer here. Somebody asked what this is. So this is just a tower on a telecom hut, and then you've got a camera on top. This is not connected to the test cage in any way, except it's next to it and can send data. So you've got Wi-Fi, like Infinity Band or something like that. I can't remember what the name of it is, but I think that's one of their products. Dave, do you remember what those are called?
I don't remember who makes those, but they're SpaceX's favorite two-way microwave link.
Yeah, it's like Infinity or something, but it's on the 2.4 gigahertz range. And then they also have like 5 gigahertz and stuff like that. So it's very much like high level or business grade, but they don't have to go through and get special licenses or anything like that to use it.
While we're here, let's ask Indy and Mauricio, do we have donations and questions?
We have lots of donations. I'll start them off and then I'll hand it over to Mauricio.
No. I guess we don't. Wait, Indy, are you?
Wait, you can't.
I think maybe I can't hear. We can't hear you.
You're very quiet, Indy.
Interesting. Okay. Mauricio, do you
I think you're on a different mic. That's what I'm hearing.
No, my mic is just up. My apologies.
There you go.
That's much better.
We were listening to the ceiling. I like that.
I'm like, no.
I used to do that all the time.
Okay. So, starting from the beginning, Jim Cavett donated $5 and says, "Hi at RGV Aerial Photography and Company." 55 Chevy Guy donated $10 and said, "Let's start a donation train for fuel, flight, and Sunny Biscuit costs. And hit that like button, please." Sharpie then donated $10 and says, "Keep up the good work, RGV." Then we received a donation again from Jim Cavett, who says, "All aboard." And then a $9.99, where'd it go? $9.99 donation from Michael Dennis, who says, "Thanks so much for all the work. What are the chances of a full wet trip?" Well, we'll ask that question in just a minute. Mauricio, I'll leave that to you. Then Yuzada donated $5 and says that they're feeling the launch getting closer and closer. The anticipation is killing them. Chris Lyons donated $10. Then Johnny Rasta came in with $100 through PayPal and then a $10 super chat. So Johnny Rasta, thank you. And says, "Thanks, RGV." Then JK Video donated $10. Frank Taylor donated $20 and says, "RGV member party on launch day." I kind of like that idea, Mauricio. If it happens on the 8th or the 9th, we could. And then Captain Fish came in with $5 and says, has another question that Mauricio can read when that time is right. Mauricio, I'll hand it over to you.
All right, and just as you said that, I got a PayPal donation from Kenneth Coates. Go for lunch, $50. Thank you very much, Kenneth Coates, for that. I'll get right into the questions here. So we got the first question from Michael Dennis. What about S26 to Massey's? That's the first question there.
Well, Zach, you touched on this one first. Do you want to answer that?
Well, Ship 26 is still getting engines installed, so I don't think that we'll see that one go yet. They just moved an additional 2 Raptors. They were the last 2 Center Raptor engines, I think this morning. So yeah, they're still installing those final 2 engines, and then after that, I don't know if they'll go straight to testing before they do shielding. I think that's kind of what they may do on the ships right now. But yeah, we would more than likely, I think, see it go to the suborbital pad when it's ready instead of coming to Massey's, because it would only go to Massey's just to do a single cryo test, and they could, do that at the launch site followed by a static fire. Doesn't really make sense to do the double move.
Now, earlier you talked about Ship 27, and I just noticed something kind of special here. We've got a setup that could basically be a puck shucker for, looks like 3 engines that would be vac wraps and 3 sea levels set up at least on the can crusher, which is really unusual.
Wait, was that not there before?
No, I don't recall it being like this before. I mean, this is really high. Usually it would basically be pulling down on a like a test article for the can crusher. That's the hydraulic rams right here that go all the way down. But these are the inside rams, and you just basically need to bolt it down to the rest of the plate system. And they have an adapter plate that's sitting on the ground. Let me go back to show that real quick. Let's see, this one. So there's the adapter plate right here. So you could basically put on anything else you wanted. You could put on a ship, you could put on a booster. But one thing that might also go with it is what's in here. So I don't recall now that I think about it, the ring inside, but you could basically build rings that go through and are adapted to the can crusher.
Yeah, I think you might be right about that, because I was trying to look at some pictures from last week, but I'm not finding them. That does make sense though, because 7.1 was on there, or 7.2.
7.2.
Yeah, it was on there right before, and that wouldn't make sense to have those 3, and those are actually way smaller pistons than what's usually on there too. So that's really interesting. And I mean, are they too far out to be RVAC mounts?
I'm just finding another view here to kind of just trace what we're looking at here. No, they're inwards a bit. So this would basically be where the skirt section is right here, and they are inset, just like a vac wraps would be. So this would be another way to look, is that you've got this large ring around it. So you basically have a walkway. Maybe that's like 2-3 feet wide. And then this has got a gap between that walkway as well. So we're looking at closer to saying that test stand A is no longer completely necessary, and we shouldn't interrupt our orbital launch cadence for doing, let's say, puck shucking. We should use this instead. That's kind of what I'm seeing and thinking about this. I guess the one question I'd have
That would be interesting, actually.
Yeah, but like Grover here, this is it a 1750? I wonder if it's tall enough and can hold enough weight for a Starship to do a lift onto that without engines, of course. So it's going to weigh around 100 and like 10, 120 between there. I'd have to go through and look up the information on that crane to see if this would be able to do it. But you could basically have 27 or any other ship without any other basically puck shucking occurring to do puck shucking tests on this, and then go from there to the cryo station. And you could actually do cryo here as well, that I think about it, during the puck shucking, because they have the attachments to do it. You just need a a ship quick disconnect to do that. Wow, that's kind of impressive.
That was a good catch, because that's going to be an interesting one to see what they put on there.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if there's another way to look at this as well. The parts that you mentioned are inset. I was actually going to look at the an old picture here from the 10th.
Yeah,
You've got it.
They're not. They weren't there last week.
Okay, can you grab the picture of the what's inside the tent real quick as well?
Oh.
Or did you close it already?
No, I haven't. That picture should show it to you.
Okay, can you share that to me now?
Yeah, it's just a slow uploading one. These pictures are kind of large files.
I love the large files just because you get all the nice details, but it does take a bit.
So I'm not sure that Grover's a 1750, but a 1750 can pick up 800 tons.
It's a Grove GT or GRT or something like that. 1750. Is that what you're looking at?
It's a 175 ton crane then.
Okay.
I think it's a GMK 7450.
7450. Wow, I'm way off.
Okay.
That should be 400 tons.
That's strange. I'm just looking at this image and it looks lower resolution than the other one. Oh, I see why. It's this. Ha ha ha. Okay, that's better.
Oh boy, that is a lot better.
It's just like, why does it take so long to upload that little thumbnail? Oh, it's...
Yes, you don't want to look at the thumbnail?
Oh, it's hard to tell from this position. But maybe a different angle, because I just need to see what's on the top surface, and I'm kind of missing those details.
That looks to me like it's just a flat top surface.
Yeah,
it could be anything,
Dave.
But I see poles on it, which would be looks like safety
walkway, maybe.
Yeah, it looks like a walkway on the inside. But that inside part, that walkway, kind of reminds me of what's going on.
I just sent you a better one.
Okay. Oh, much better. Thank you. Yeah, I still don't see anything on the top of it besides the walkway parts and just the poles. But these little safety railings just kind of remind me what they're building here. So that would be this stuff right here. Might be going inside of this tent. So they're just building it over here, moving it over here with a forklift. They've got plenty of equipment like forklifts. Take your pick, but I think that one would be useful there. Maybe this is other rental equipment that's not United Rentals, but anyways, yeah, I could definitely see the Can Crusher doing basically puck shucking and testing. They have it set up to be able to do that, but they also have the pads right here that you could do sea level puck shucking. That's kind of what these indicate, these little pads.
Well, hold on. Yeah, so if they wanted to put a ship on top of that, they would need an adapter in order to do that. So that's probably what that is in the tent, is the adapter to put a Starship on top.
You mean a booster?
No, a Starship.
Starship.
On the Can Crusher, because the
Can Crusher, okay,
yeah. The booster, the Can Crusher is already fit for boosters, and being able to adapt it to a Starship would work out perfectly. But the weird part I'm looking at, let me go back to the ground images here. What's this one right here? So the strange part is you have, let's say you put that adapter plate or that ring right here. It doesn't quite match up if it's let's say 4 feet high or something even tall like that. It'd have to be much shorter because these would need to go up pretty high. These like to go a little bit low, so it's close, but it doesn't seem to be right just visually for what the puck shucking would look like. But I guess one comparison we could do, I'm going to take a sneak peek. How about that? So we're just going to skip through this real quick. I'm going to look at the puck shuckers at test stand A just to compare it. And actually, that does look like it works. So here's the puck shuckers, the 3 of them for the sea level, and I'm sorry, the vacuum raptors out in this outside here, and then the 3 sea levels are in here. So the height difference is about the same.
Yeah, but that whole thing is low compared to Test Stand A. Test Stand A, they're all 4 and 8 feet above where the Starship would mount.
Hey,
Yeah.
Thomas, do you want to give a quick rundown for some people that may not know what puck shucking is when you talk about it?
Yeah, okay, so Elon called it the puck shucker. So that's what these pieces would be. So they're hydraulic rams. They push up while the rest of this is basically holding on to a booster or a starship. And the reason he called it like the puck shucker is because there is a piece that they're pushing on called the puck. And if you shuck it like shucking corn, you've broken it. And so you don't want to shuck the puck. And that's why I also call it the can crusher. I named it when I figured out what it's going to be for. It's a structural test stand. That's its technical name, but I called it the can crusher because if it crushes the can, it's failed. Just like the puck shucker, shucking pucks. So a little rundown of names and why they're called that. But yeah,
this is an odd one because like once you put that adapter on top, this won't be able to touch the ship engines, so engine mounts. So pretty odd one.
Yeah, I mean the only other way to figure out like what they're doing here is to say that it's just going to be rings shorter, which that really doesn't make sense and doesn't compute. But you could go through and make these poles larger, and these are just temporary fill-ins for now, just to test it, I guess. Test the actual mechanisms. But yeah, that's weird. Maybe for calibration purposes or something else. I don't know. That's just odd of why it's so short in comparison. Well, it's almost the top of the hour. We've spent most of this time on Massey. Let's get moving. Directly over to Sanchez.
Well, there was one more question here that
yes.
donated with the question. Captain Fish donated $5, and the question is, what are the stacked cylindrical objects done from the reverse osmosis plant?
Okay, so if they're talking about stacked cylindrical objects, these would be the COPVs right here. I think that's what those are. They look to be COPV styled, basically compressed gas cylinders. But they could also be, if they're not, I've seen similar shaped items like this, basically as your household, what is it called? Not a water tank, it's a water softener. So you could have a water softener like this, and it will be, on the inside you'll have a, what is it called? Like
membrane?
It's a membrane, but it's got a specific term. But basically it goes through, removes the minerals, and you have to go through and use salt to help flush it out. I just can't remember the name of the membrane.
You wouldn't have more than one of those, right? These are multiple.
Well, if these would be like a part of a water softener system or something like that, it would be because they're trying to replace them and use them as like, this is our storage for the next 3 years. But I think these are COPVs.
Yeah, that
simply
makes more sense.
Because we've seen the COPVs just disappear with no trace, and then these have appeared here. So I would say more likely COPVs. I could see that they've got one end cap on this side, but I think I see something here on the other side, which makes me think it might not be the COPV. So we're looking at this image. I'm just needing to see one further to the right if we have one, and I don't think we do. No, we don't. So this is the only other image that's close to this area. And again, I can barely see something kind of sticking out right there, which makes me think it's got an input and output. So it goes from one side to the other. If that's the case, it would more likely be for the water purification. It could actually be for the actual osmosis as well. You could have a large osmosis piece that looks like this. It's just a lot bigger than I was expecting. Because I've seen ones that are like the size of maybe about 5 inches. These look to be a bit bigger than that. Any other Anything to add to that, Dave? You would probably know what that
That's about it.
membrane is. I just can't remember that name. I hate when I get stuck on the names of things that I should remember, but I just can't. Okay, so big news. This picture is inaccurate. Ship 24 is now off to the launch site. So good news there. But also big news. We've got power coming in. This is really great news. We talked about this last week, that I noticed at least 3 spools on one side and another like 4 spools onto the other side over at the tracking station are missing. Well, here are some spools, and they weren't here last week, so these are additional spools that they are going through and installing power into conduit that has already been set. So we are now hooking up to Magic Valley's power grid here at the Sanchez site. Dave, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, they've been putting conduit and vaults underground all over Starbase for the last year. We got new high power lines coming down Route 4 from Magic Valley that went in months ago or so. But up until now, they haven't been connected. All that conduit under the ground has been laying empty. About a month and a half ago, we started seeing all these reels of wire showing up over by the tracking station, and they're finally pulling in their high power feed. So they will be completely redoing all the power everywhere on Starbase because of those systems being brought in. Yeah, look at all that wire, and that's miles of wire, literally.
Yeah, they're missing a bunch of spools here, missing a bunch of spools here. At least this was from, I'm looking at the 24th. So we're now on the 1st, so it's been a while. And so additional spools are most likely missing because at Sanchez, they didn't have a bunch of spools sitting around like that. So this is really cool to see that they're really making progress here.
Yeah, I've been waiting because when that power is in and stable, that would probably be a good time for their air separation plant to go to full stream also, because then they'll have the power to run it without running those natural gas generators sitting down there right in front of it.
Yeah. So this is like a 13.1 or 12.1, I can't remember now, megawatt generator system, and it would basically be the backup power supply. That's what it was originally intended for the place they got this. They got a place in Albany, Oregon, and then it was like a wood processing facility, and they never seemed to use them except for like once a month. You could see the records on them when they sold them. But anyways, the gas liquefaction plant is so power hungry. You have to constantly feed it power, and it actually, if you just turn it off and on and off and on, it's the worst direction to go because you have to cool everything down, and that takes a lot of energy to do. And you want to just leave it on all the time until it's like, oh, something's not working. We have to shut it down and do maintenance or scheduled maintenance. That's the only time you want to go through and shut it down, and you want to have it just processing otherwise. And you want your LOX, your nitrogen, and if you can, argon. Those are the 3 that would be the most useful for SpaceX, specifically because they do a lot of welding with argon. They use a lot of oxygen for whenever they do a static fire or a launch. And then the nitrogen is actually just to keep things cool. And it's also just a byproduct of this process. But you can also use the process streams. Let's say nitrogen, you can go through and say, I'm going to get rid of the nitrogen and just go through and try to get oxygen. And you use your nitrogen to cool other things down. That's a part of the process that you could do with a gasification plant like that.
They can use the argon for their Starlink satellites?
Yeah, they could. I was going to mention that one too, but it's like, I mean, it's Starbase, but yeah, they really could basically say, we're going to take argon from here, reprocess it a little bit more, make sure its purity is higher, so it doesn't take too much more once you get a good amount of argon to say, well, we're just eking out that little bit of purity so we don't have contaminants in it. And yeah, you're pretty much good to go with a installing that argon on your Starlinks, the version 1.5 or version 2s that have the argon thrusters, which is like insane as far as the price, because they started off going from looking at xenon. They didn't actually use them, but they looked at xenon thrusters, said too expensive, we need this to be mass reproducible, and we don't want to be spending as much xenon that we would need as it would cost to build the satellite. So you don't want to double your cost just on your fuel. So they went and looked at krypton, and krypton's a lot less expensive. You use it in all sorts of lighting and other things, just like you could use for xenon. But argon, like, that is nearly dirt cheap. The only thing that's a little bit cheaper is probably a little bit of helium, but that's a little bit pricier. It's dirt cheap because you get it from the dirt, but it's not. Anyways, they're both very...
Helium is probably more expensive than argon because there's more argon available because it comes out of the air versus helium that mostly comes from natural gas wells.
Yeah. So yeah, helium is a fun one because it likes to escape the atmosphere. You can't capture it. Well, you can capture a little bit out of the atmosphere, but it takes a lot of atmosphere to get a little bit of helium. Getting it from the ground is a lot easier. Still no progress on the windows on the Mega Bay.
We live for those windows, man.
Yeah. One quick note, it does look like they're doing some saw cutting of concrete here. So when we get our next flyover, hopefully this week, we should see more concrete at the United Rentals lot. We know that they were going to do it anyways, but now we're seeing a bit more here, at least with this saw cutting crew going through and cutting some concrete. Anyways, but I did notice a nice new orange JCB lifts here. These are pretty new. I think they're fresh from the factory or something because they don't even have much dirt on the tires yet. A little bit here, but not much.
You're so funny.
Well, it just stands out because it's so bright. Like the rest of this is...
We know this is United Rentals' main yard for the area, so all new deliveries would probably go here first. So yeah, very likely.
But yeah, you can see all the UV damage to the rest of the paint, so that's why that orange really stands out. Brand new stuff. I love it. All right, we want to talk a little bit about the stand itself. We had some debates and trying to understand what this is all for, a couple of ideas floating around. So Dave, you had some interesting thoughts on this last night. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, I've got no clue what these are for, but looking at them, they look to me like they might be for hooking cables or rods to with shackles, just the way they're oriented. Why you would need them here, I have not a really good explanation, but yeah, like you could have cables or posts or something connected to these that you could use to strap down or lock down a booster on this. Was also, we had another discussion that might have a plate or something that goes across this and locks the pin into place. So you don't need the hydraulic cylinder that you can see between them that they use to extend and retract the 20 pins that hold the booster to the stand. It's very mysterious. Now, my only comment last night was these holes exactly line up above and horizontally to the sides of the top plate and the side plates of the boxes that the pins are restrained in.
Yeah, so this was another part you mentioned that it's good to look at, is that these posts here are in direct line of sight in the way of going on to whatever's, let's say if we go all the way to the other side. My only caveat to that is if it's a pole or something that's in the center. I was looking at a object and trying to figure out like how to describe what to call this. And I think I closed the search on it. Shoot, I hate when that happens. But it was a rod, long arm rod system that was it called a turtle clamp, I think. But basically the idea being that there's a plate. you can see these plates right here and right here that they've removed in order to get, booster 8, whatever is left of it, off of the stand. And so these little red blocks right here, these blocks sit on the lip of this right here. So they sit right on the lip of this to hold down the whole booster so it can be transported. And when they go to launch, that's the same thing there. They basically have the hold down clamps on the lip to prevent the booster from lifting off. But anyways, these 20 clamps, they seem to have a problem with removing the bolts. We've seen it where they bring it to the launch site and they spent hours trying to remove a single bolt. And then they finally go through and give up, and I think they will like drill through it or something. And by the time that they are ready to do the lift, they have to cancel. So they leave the site and put on the clamps again on the other ones that they can still work with, and it just screws up their whole schedule. So having a system that would allow them to basically clamp down the booster, I would love to see something like that. But the one problem is I would expect to see more of something right in here, something that would allow it to basically push up and down. And that this would basically be the pivot point which the plates would come off of, because you need to be able to lift the points up and away from the ship. I'm sorry, the booster, so that you can then lift the booster, just as you have these, not these guys, it's these pins right here that will basically align the booster and keep it aligned. You don't want these plates like messing up the engines or anything else as you're lifting. So I would love to see a system like that. This is a bit more overkill, but it would be worth it to see something in here, and I don't see anything yet. I just see these kind of like Mickey Mouse ears with tie downs or just holes for bolting something in. So anyways, it's just an interesting area to delve into to try to understand what they're going towards.
Well, let's move through some more stuff at Sanchez. I think we got a lot to cover today. There's a lot of you got S26 over there in the backside. We also have a bit of deluge pipes that we can see back there. Not much.
Yep. So we saw this deluge pipe and we were all confused about it and thinking, oh, there's a 90-degree bend or something right there. And there absolutely is. So this deluge pipe has been turned. So that's
Isn't
a big
that
one.
T fitting?
This is a 90. I don't see anything going off to the right-hand side. We only see it just going off to the left. So it's kind of like a J.
I think it goes straight, like it doesn't turn. That's the T right there.
Oh, the T is at this end. You're saying the
Yeah.
left. On the
I don't know
Flyover,
that we had any. I don't know we had any T's that big.
There's a good amount of them in there. Or I think there's only one actually.
I'm trying to see if there's
That was gonna be
another
tough to
angle
see.
that would be C. But yeah, we just saw a J. There wasn't any other pipe on the other side that we could spot. So Mauricio was taking these from the road on Highway 4. But yeah, I should see this continuing a little bit over here, but I don't see anything there. But that would be interesting to see if this was a T, because this was all tented up last flyover, so you could not see anything in that area. Do you have a picture of the T if it was next to this area?
Yeah, I'm searching for it. I think you're expecting it to continue in the wrong direction.
Like I'm expecting it to go off to the right. You're saying
It
it
would go
would be
straight.
straight. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm trying to find a good picture of it, but we can continue while I'm looking for that. If I find it.
Well, then while we're sitting here, right in front of it is a very large valve for probably that same pipe.
Sorry, I'm just pulling up the same area you're looking at here. Trying to see if I can spot that T, because I would
Actually, if you
expect
look
to
at
see
it from
it.
there, you can almost see that it does look like a 90. You're probably right.
Yeah, so it goes off this way, but you're saying it would go straight right here, and I don't see either it goes straight or it.
Yeah, it looks like a 90 to me.
I was wrong. We're good.
Okay.
Yeah,
You're talking about
we
the
all
valve
get to
here.
eat. We all get to eat lots of crow around here. You know, it's a staple diet.
Oh yes, the crow. I love the crow. It's actually grackle down here. It's not even crow. It's how wrong we are. um, but yeah, the valve is actually huge, and we'll see this in a 2-stage system that will allow it to basically. Well, actually, maybe bring up that photo again of the manifolds on the aerial, because that'll describe it a little bit better. So the manifolds is a 2-stage system. So this would be the first stage, right, for these pipes. And then there's a second stage, which is like in the middle. We're missing part of the manifold, if I am looking at this wrong, right?
Right by your cursor, you see 7 pipes. 3 small, 3 big, 1 small.
Yeah.
And I think the 1 small, there is a chrome kiwi drawing out that shows that goes to the middle pipe. Because the 3 big and the 3 small cross connect to each other between the 2 manifolds, but there's not there's a sort of matching one on the middle one, but it doesn't have the elbow on it on the other manifold. It doesn't line up either.
And so these are flow control, right? So you have the 2 different sizes. So these go to these. Those would be for the, let's say, large flow, but this would be the smaller pipe size here for the restricted flow, so it's less flow. So you stage it there, but that would also be not the actual upper stage, lower stage kind of staging we're talking about, where that one pipe would go to there's 2 lines specifically that are buried. We could probably pull up the last flyover of the launch site. Just to describe it, we'll get back to the rest of this here in just a moment. I think this one should be close enough. Yes, there we go. So we have these 2 pipes. One thing that we should see, but we can't because we don't have the flyovers this week, is the pipes are basically running this way, both of these, where I think the J is facing this way. For both of them, but this is the first and second stage. So the first stage is the larger one, second stage is the smaller one, and the smaller one would be, I would suspect, go towards the top. So that's your rainbird, so to speak.
Yeah, the definition I saw is basically pre-launch and post-launch deluge. So one sprays before the rocket lifts off, and one sprays as soon as it clears the launch table. I think if you're looking at that, Thomas, I think the smaller pipe there, the 90-degree elbow is over towards the launch table, and there's a 45-degree elbow laying on the ground next to it that I think was added on to the other end of that pipe. No, the 45, the little one.
Oh.
Yep, that one. That was added onto that pipe, and when they went in the ground, the 2 45s were facing towards the 4 water tanks.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't see it go in, but I just heard about it. So,
there's some ground photos of it when it was in from one of the cameras, and you could see the 45 sort of sticking up above the ground.
Yeah, the Deluge is going to be amazing. All right, so we've talked about this one before. I expected it's going to be 1 plate probably. So these holes here will go off at an angle, and you can't put an angled pipe in and a straight pipe in this way on the same plate. So I think they're just leaving it until they have the rest of it fit for that plate. So there's a top plate that will be above all of this. Okay, so we talked a little bit about this earlier. Let me actually just scroll through the thumbnails to get us a little bit further ahead. We still have 2 pipes. That's always a thing that comes up each week, is that we wonder how many pipes are there, and it's always still 2. But they did use one a while back because we had 3. Let me see if there's anything else. Did you want to talk a little bit about the stringers, Dave? You were asking about those last night.
I was just asking, I wasn't sure which side of the tent we were looking at last night, and whether they had disappeared, but these are prefabricated stringers for mostly booster, and they have tons and tons of them on these racks. and they're getting ready to keep their assembly line cranking.
Okay. And let's see if there's anything else that jumps out. We did talk in depth about these boxes. They're all pretty much the same. They're all dome knuckles.
The white
At least
ones are the
boxes.
same.
Yeah, these are all the same. These ones, they're approximately the same weight, approximately the same size as the dome knuckles, so they could also be dome knuckles or something else. Just the size of pallet is pretty uniform there. I think these boxes were a little bit larger and had a little bit more weight because they go up to 690 pounds. These were 673. The dimensions as well are a little bit different, but other than that, we really couldn't figure out what these ones were. And wait, what is that? What am I looking at there? I just noticed this, and it looks like it's a picture. Like somebody took a picture of the inside of the box or something.
Rabbit hole.
Yes.
Let's move on.
I mean, that literally is like a rabbit hole. What the heck is that?
Thomas.
So is there anything specifically, Zach, that you wanted to go through in this area before we get to the ship?
No.
Okay,
Let's
you
do
want to go right to the ship?
26, Yeah.
All right, let's do it then. So, what did you want to talk about that was so exciting here? I know what's exciting, but what do you want to talk about?
Well, it's just nice that we got engine install going on ship 26.
Yeah.
Cool being able to see them from this angle too. I think if you guys haven't seen, Jessica Kirsch had a really awesome stream this week showing all of the engines it was one of the RVACs being installed. So that was a pretty awesome stream. If you guys haven't seen that, probably one of the few times. Well, I guess we'll probably get to see that more in the future, but definitely one of the few times we've seen it so far, at least so close up. Pretty rare angle being able to watch those massive engines being lifted in there.
Yeah, I did watch the parts of that stream. I was working on networking while I was doing it, so I was listening to mostly. But the very end, she was like, "I'll talk to you guys in a little bit," and I'm like, "Oh, the stream's gonna continue." No, it ended. So I'm like listening, waiting for it to continue, hoping she's gonna pop up to the next site, and no, it ended. So I was like, "Oh, okay," and so I had to actually go back and figure out what was going on. But this was quite a show. I do love these little strain gauges here, so they can figure out like the weights of the engines and the ship in total, what the weights offset will be, because you have 6 points, you have 3 engines on the outside, and they actually have one sea level in here you can't see. So this has got 4 engines right now, so that's pretty neat. All right, so I think we can now jump over to the build site, unless there's anything else outstanding or any questions on the Sanchez site.
There's no questions at the Sanchez. I don't know if there's donations in this, sir.
There
Just
are a
like
few donations, yep. I'll just read them off fairly quickly. 1, 2, or 12 donated £5 and says, "You guys are great." Steve Coates donated $19.99 and said, "Paying Jim Cavett kindness forward," which means Jim Cavett actually gifted Steve Coates a membership, which is awesome. And that's true for many of the people in the chat. They're so kind. They're generously donating gift memberships to lots of people who don't have them. So I highly encourage you to jump into the chat. You never know what you might win. And then Cosmic came in with $5 and says, "Choo choo." And those are all the donations for now.
Okay, well, quick note. This is the dome that you see here, the top dome of the forward methane tank. That was a question was asked last night. Just briefly go over it. And this is an amazing view of the camera. So you can see this one's looking up, this one's looking down. This will be our perspective during the launch. We'll be able to see that during the launch, and maybe even re-entry. That'd be kind of neat. So I'm crossing my fingers to be able to see those views. Yeah, I think that was it for the launch site. Now we can go into the build site a little bit.
That's fine.
Yeah, this is one that somehow got into the Sanchez pictures I've got here, but it's a good one to start us off with before we go jumping into the rest of the build site. We're going to talk about the Mega Bay, or Mega Bay 2, or High Bay 3, whatever you want to call it. they have
The next bay.
yeah, they have made some significant progress. So this just gives you a quick overview that they have forms up. You can see we're looking down, looking at forms, basically all the directions here. Let me actually go to a little bit better pictures. That Mauricio, I think, were you on your the top of your truck when you took these pictures here?
Yeah, so that puts me at about, what is it, like 15 feet above the ground?
Yeah, I see the workers smiling at you. There's a bunch of these. They saw you. They were looking at your camera and smiling when you were taking pictures.
They asked me when I was out there, hey, photo time or something, but they told me in Spanish. I think that's funny, guys.
That's
Probably looked for me.
so they see you and yell photo time.
No, they were coming back from break. I guess it was around, I don't know. I guess they had taken a lunch break or something, and they were walking back into the site, and they asked me to take them a photo. But they were joking, but I guess they saw me.
Yeah, we'll probably see a few more people in a couple of these photos here. But one thing we were talking about last night is how wide these forms are. I went through and measured it out. It came to be, I think it was like 26 feet, which is about the right length.
Your images over. It shows a better view of the like the whole. Oh wow, where is it? Let me get you an image number.
Oh, I can't see the numbers. You have to use the thumbnails. Sorry.
Let's see. It's one where you can actually see down the entire the formwork in between them. It's a better view. It's not from the side. It's like a straight, that one on the bottom.
That one right here. Okay. That one is pretty wide.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how deep it is too. So it looks like you can see. The water kind of makes it look like the pad underneath is thicker than it is, but it's just a little base pad that allows them to have a flat base as they're putting down all this rebar. But we haven't really been able to get this view on any of the mega base so far. So this is kind of pretty crazy to be able to see this foundation work being done like that.
You mentioned the water, and I still can't help see it the wrong way, even though I know it's water. There's stuff floating on top, and it's like, that should give it away, but I'm seeing these in the reflection thinking, oh, it goes deeper. That's weird. Why would they do that?
Okay.
Well, I mean, given the forms are 2 foot wide, those panels are 8 foot tall. That is going to be a lot of concrete.
Now, we talked about I've got the wrong word, but like the inserts, or what did you call them?
Embeds.
Embeds, yes.
Embedding.
Every time I keep forgetting that word, embedding. I just have to think of it like a web browser or something. But yeah, the embeds should go on these spots right here. So that's going to be kind of interesting to see. We also talked a little bit about the depth. So like I was looking at these last week and I looked them up, and they're called T-heads. And so if it was just the T-heads, you could say, well, it would be like 6 to 8 inches from there. You'd have the top of your foundation, unless you have rebar or additional rebar, which they do. So it goes up quite a bit higher. So you can actually see the rebar going up to about here. And I think these are possibly the embeds here that they would have been add-ons directly after the fact.
Those are like guides or something that they'll slide the embeds through for some reason.
Yeah, if you look at them, they're slotted. I think that's what the embed posts guide into once, so they know where they're going to be when they put the rebar in.
Okay, that makes sense. Because the embeds themselves, they kind of go into this a little bit. These are the outside of the building. This is where all of the walls will bolt down to. And the embeds are basically the bolts sticking up that everything screws into and bolted on. It's the bolts, and then the rest of it just gets nuts put on the bolts, for the wall panels on the outside. Anyways, the depth of this is quite crazy. Do you still have that picture of Roberts Road? Because this is still a very apt description of that.
Yes, I do. Let me grab that really quick.
Okay, and then I'm going to grab last week's view on the aerial while you're doing that. So this was what it looked like last week. So you could see that they had put down that first foundation where you saw that little bit of water right here. That is the first foundation. You basically want to do this so that the concrete doesn't slump. They also have a nice work surface to keep everything level and straight off of. So this is your first surface that you are working off of. They didn't complete all of this by the flyover point, but from this perspective, you can see that. This perspective, that they have cleared up everything else now, and they've done all the rest of the floor except for this direction, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, this is basically the concrete floor that they're working off of.
Well, they can't do that direction because it's got the ramp they used to get down inside for right now. If you go back to the aerial from last week for a second, there's an interesting thing that I think is true. The bottom right-hand corner, it looks like they have backfilled around the caissons, with broken up concrete. Everywhere else it's nice and neat. Yeah, it's all nice and neat and smooth. And this spot, it's like they piled all of the junk around that corner of where the caissons are versus where it's all neat and level and pretty.
It's basically to say this is our spot that we're going to do last. So we're going to throw all the junk here for now and also protect your tires. Just in case.
It's just interesting. It's like using their scrap as fill just in this one little area.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the embeds. These are the embeds that we should see, or something very similar that will basically be used at the Mega Bay. Now, are these wood at the very top?
Yeah, that's plywood. It's usually just plywood. So what they do is they thread the rebar, the threaded bar through, and then they bolt it top and bottom, and then the wood's there to align everything, and the nuts on the top also keep the nuts clean so that when you put your steel in, you don't have to chip all the concrete off the end of the rebar or off the end of the embed.
Oh, nice. That is really smart thinking. A little bit of thrown away wood, but that doesn't matter. It's
probably around the construction site is just a part of life.
Yeah, it's probably a multi-million-dollar building anyways. What's a little scrap? All right, so let's see if there's anything else here. I got another smiler. Actually, this is the left-hand side, so you can see that they've done the left, the right, but just not that center area that we're talking about. So that's how they're getting in and out of this area. So this would be the center that they need to basically fill in the rest of it. One thing I've been noticing a lot of lately is these. The tiles are going crazy over here. They've gotten so many tiles now. I think they can do at least another 2 or 3 ships without any new tiles coming in. It's a lot.
Well, this would tend to indicate that I think it's Sidco Road in Florida, which was the old shuttle tile facility and is now the Starship tile facility, is cranking out tiles at a rate that they never did when the shuttle was operational.
Yeah, this is the tiles we're looking at, but they have even more than this week. They just keep bringing truckload and truckload in. So, that's really exciting to see that inventory with tiles is not a problem. The custom ones, that still takes some time, and they're making the custom tiles behind this machinery back on the other side. So they've got a view right here. You can see it looks like they've got a press maybe over here. And then they will basically form the tiles, and then they will basically take those molds and put them in a kiln, which is probably over on this side. I don't really see it, or I haven't really seen too many pictures of it, but it should be there. Because they're making custom tiles. That's why it took so long for Ship 24 to get its final tiles. They were doing like one tile at a time, measuring it, going to the next one. Speaking of that rubble, Dave, there's even more. And we're getting a quick shot of the Sanchez area, which I think you might be able to see.
There should be 3 vacuum raptors in that shot.
There is, but this platform I'm looking at, I didn't realize they had a platform.
That is oh no, you don't. You see,
You're breaking up, Dave.
that's the Raptor truck.
Oh, okay. I was just looking at it.
Same truck they use at test stand A and B. I got to watch Jessica Kirsch's stream 2 nights ago when they were putting the vacuum raptors in, and she was there to watch the whole thing. And last night when they were putting the first center raptor in, and they're reusing the same Raptor truck that they had at the launch site.
Yeah, let me make sure I'm not. Okay, there's a bunch of ship's pieces that were from Sanchez in the build side. I thought I fixed that. All right, quick things to go through. They've cut through the wall here. We talked about it previously. You can see all the way through. But there isn't much as far as structure on the other side. You can actually see that they've pulled or drilled the holes or removed the rivets. So like these ones have rivets there. You can see holes. So this is almost ready to have a door or just be completely removed for this paneling. So that's a pretty big sign of progress. Jumping over to this view, this is really neat. So we talked about this one. Zach, were you also mentioning this?
Last night, but I thought this was on the back of the Mega Bay, but it's not.
It's high bay.
That's what makes it odd. Because the high bay does have their HVAC unit up top for the bar area or whatever you want to call it, but they don't have anything, I guess, down low. So that's what this is. I wonder if it's going to turn and run all the way up to the top, but it looks like there's a T coming down to the bottom. So
I've got a thought which you just trickled, Zach. What if this is not a supply line but an exhaust line? Is this about the height of a welding robot?
It is. The welding robot, I believe, is in this area or maybe a little bit higher.
Isn't it off to the corner?
Yeah, I think it's in the back right corner.
Back right
Which is where that pipe ends?
The left would be the right corner.
Okay, sorry, I'm trying to think of like which right you're talking about.
So I'm wondering if they're putting in some ducting to evacuate the welding fumes from around the robot.
Well, one other thing we talked about yesterday was when they're welding, if your material itself is hotter than it should be, you'll have some other issues occur. So for each weld, you have basically what would be called stacking tolerance. So you add that up for each of the rings that you're talking about, and you can actually have your vehicles be inches difference, because one will have a little bit less for each of the welds, or one will have a little bit more for each of the welds, or it averages out to be close, but they're still off by a bit, just because of heat and basically thermal expansion. So when you're welding in the tents, for instance, you want it to be about 30 degrees Celsius. And I almost think that they want to do the same thing here, or at least around the welds and the materials themselves. They want to condition the materials. But there's a big problem. There's a huge hole on the other side of the building. So they're just going to be warming up the atmosphere on one side, cooling it down on the other. And it's just going to be this massive change of temperature across the two. Another stacking tolerance or thermal variation you'll have that needs to be talked about is when you are welding the two rings together, you have a diameter of 27 meters or something like that. Circumference of 27 meters. And so if you have a little bit of heat difference on the two ring sections and you're basically coming up to the end of your weld, you'll have extra ring that needs to be welded in, but you can't, because one was just too hot, one was too cold. So that's always an issue as well. And so you get buckling and other things. By the way, if we say Jack's names 3 times, does he appear? Is that true?
I don't know if that works on his birthday weekend.
True. But we can see at least the ship aft section, and you can see part of the downcomer for the LOX header tank, I believe, right here. But I kind of suspect that they would have one of these. Now I'm thinking about it for the methane header tank. Oh no, wait, that comes through the main tank, so never mind that's not necessary. But this kind of acts as a reservoir, and if there's any gases in the fuel coming through, or the LOX specifically, it'll want to tend to collect towards the top. So that's kind of an interesting area because it's kind of like a plenum. Yeah, I'm just pulling up the Miro board from the Ring Watchers now, trying to find the the ring number that this ship would be supposedly for. I don't have it off of the back of my mind or memory here. It's kind of vague and missing.
28's aft section.
28's aft section?
I think so.
28's
28's being
close
close right now.
I thought 28's aft section was in the bay or just outside of it, but this could be it. Ship 28's aft section. I don't see it on the Miro board inside the tent like that. It should be ship 29 if this is going to be one of the ships here. Unless the board is a bit old, but I think it's up to date. They're pretty good about that. Okay, so these should be... Oh, moved around too much. Mirror board's still loading for me. It takes a while. Okay, here we go. So what we should be looking at is just a ship to aft skirt. It's got no direct label for which ship it will be for. But the really strange one is this, like, test article right here. We've talked about it before. It has 4 points that would basically be like load points for pushing and pulling. So this is some sort of structural test stand or part of a stand, but it looks like it's for a booster. I had the crazy idea last night, like, what if they're deciding to build a shaker table for boosters? Be like the world's largest shaker table, at least for vertical elements. That would be insane. I don't know how you would do the rest of it. Maybe you don't do a whole booster, but just the aft section, and I don't know, it's just a very odd assembly. So there's these pieces like this that will stick out, and that's one of the areas you have like an eyelet for pulling and pushing in the X and Y directions. So the one over here, they've labeled this one a dev weld. This is a booster forward. You can actually see that they've got the flap section there. And then, let's see, we've got, I believe, B11 here, pretty much these two, and then we've got B13 in the back. Or maybe that's also B11. B13 is just to the left of that. Or it should be.
We will not be seeing these sit here very long because B11 is rapidly being stacked in the Mega Bay.
All right. And I just got a note from Jax, from Miro, saying, waiting on Flyover before it's fully updated. So I think he's listening in. Thank you, Jax.
He didn't say get off my board? I'm just kidding.
But yeah, this is pretty entertaining to go through and still like look at the booster sections. Like that's obviously a booster forward section. Which booster, I'm not sure. They'll be able to figure it out. Jax is genius as far as going through and organizing his thoughts on the Miro board and making sure that we understand which one is which. And this one, oh, that's looking pretty terrible. I think that's just a scrapped test article of what would it be, a, let's say, part of a downcomer, or it could be a lot of different parts. So like this would normally have been part of, let's say, forward dome, and you'd have to dome it, but this would also be a common dome. It's pretty common element. You could even do, let's say, a puck section out of something like this, but you have to basically remove material. So they like to go through and do consistency. So they used to have all three, the forward, the aft, the common, all be the same shape as this, except what you do on this part makes it the part that it will be. That's a better view right here. So it kind of looks a lot like a common dome, but it seems to be kind of one of those either scrapped or going a different direction. Who knows? But now we've got also a good comparative perspective of the two. So I went through and measured these a while back, and it was like, what was it? 3.8 meter, or I'm sorry, 2.8 meters and 1.8 meters or something like that. It was like 1 meter difference between let's say, a dome that would have been going up to here, so like a forward dome, and one of these basically shorter domes that are squashed, I guess you could say. I love these because they are so much less material, so much less welding. I really do hope that they go for the flatter domes. It's a really smart process. You could do at least the forward domes, maybe even the common domes, but one thing I like about the common domes is actually like how this shape, whoops, one too far. This shape is like a funnel. It just brings all of your methane into the downcomer, so it's perfect. Okay, so let's see. Is there anything else we should go for while we're in the build
ship
site?
28 in the high bay.
Okay, looking at that should be ship 27. Let me go directly to 28.
It's really odd because from this angle, it doesn't look like it's stacked as high as it actually is.
There we go. There's 28, missing its aft section, I believe. But they've been going fast on stacking.
Yeah, the Ring Watchers put out a really cool thread on this, like how they're doing this, basically just starting from the top and going all the way down versus basically the cup stacking that they had to do before. It's kind of hard to explain without showing that graphic, but matter of fact, maybe I can pull that up really quick because it is really cool to show.
Yeah, it eliminated about 75% of the moves they used to have to do to change load spreaders and lifting assemblies for every lift. Now it's just pick the nose cone up, put something under it, weld it, pick up the set, put something under it, weld it, and just keep rinse and repeat until you have an entire starship.
I'm not finding it. But yeah, essentially, as Dave said, their process is definitely sped up for stacking ships. So this one's, I don't think I've ever seen one come together this quickly. So I'm wondering what the status is on 27, if we will see that actually move out to either Massey's or the Sanchez site, the launch site for that puck shucking, but definitely something to keep an eye on.
I'm hoping for Massey's because it looks like they're headed that direction. It's just not the right lengths, or something is weird. I don't know what they would be doing to make it work. Take off a ring section doesn't sound like a good idea. Because 27 is the one that would be functional as far as Starlink. So I want to see those Starlinks launched if they're going to use it that way.
When I was leaving, ship 28 looked like it had rotated. I don't know if you can go to one of the last images.
Okay, so there's this one. I'm looking for just 28.
It's probably at the very, very end of the gallery.
Yeah, there were some posts on Ring Watchers. I think somebody had counted up to 12 different revolutions of Ship 28. It spun around 12 complete cycles. Somebody commented, I think it was on Ring Watchers, that they've gotten to the point now where they get a scissors lift out to inspect things on the Starship. And rather than moving the scissors lift around, they just rotate the turntable, and the guy on the scissors lift just sits there and watches it go by.
I'm just making sure I didn't put the the pictures. I only have one of high bay. I'm just looking for additional ones I may have misplaced. I don't see them anywhere else.
Actually, I guess I don't have that image. It's edited, but if I do find it, I'll send it over to you. It's
Right,
not
thank you.
that important, but yeah, just thought I'd mention it.
Okay, so let's continue on a little bit more from 27. We do have the other side of the shipyard. We've got quite a few downcomers. So these are booster downcomers that'll go to the LOX header tanks on this end for this one, and this end for this one. It's just really neat to see the parts are coming along, and you can actually see there's either a difference in these parts, because I see this little like tab, or maybe it's just a reflection. I think that's just a reflection. Anyways, rabbit hole. But it is just nice to see that they have a large inventory ready and waiting for them. So it's not waiting for their supply chain, for instance. And that's a really good direction to go.
The booster downcomer's in the front, the ship downcomer's in the back, correct?
Yeah, that should be a ship one, I think, unless that's... Yeah, it looks like it's a smaller diameter. It just looks to be kind of high up for some reason.
Well, it doesn't have the massive amount of extra stiffening that the booster ones did.
Yeah, they actually do have less stiffeners further up on the booster downcomer, so it can look a little bit more like this. But I think this is for the ship, because I'm not seeing much of a circumference there or diameter to say that this would be for the booster. Like this is a part of the booster, so this would be the methane sump for the downcomer, or the transfer tube as they like to call it. But are these pool noodles? I think those are. I love that.
Yes, they are.
But these are the more pricier versions that are like 75 cents.
Those are precision slitted foam edge protectors. Now I can charge you $100 for one.
And they're almost exactly the same as pool noodles.
I think they convert one to the other, but we don't talk about that.
I like it when Starbase actually uses the pool noodles, because it's like, they're cheaper? Yes, let's use it. It works. It's just as functional. There might be some other problems, like it could be that pool noodles leave residue behind, and that we can't have. So who knows?
Wait, you're talking Starbase here. The residue's in the air.
True. All right, let me skip through a little bit here. Do you want to talk about nose cones or anything else like that?
Well, just the comment we got from Jax last night, I believe that one of those, I think the back one in that picture, is nose cone 32, which goes on, somebody's going to have to correct me here, ship 29?
Ship 30.
Ship 30.
The one in the front goes on 29.
Remember when ship 5 was a big thing?
Yeah, it's terrible. But one of the things that... Sorry, I'm just looking at this. This is ship 22's flaps, I believe, on 29's nose cone.
Yes, it is. They have identified the blemishes on it and truly identified it as having come off of 22. Jax was commenting on it last night.
Oh, 29 is becoming the Franken-Rocket of Franken-Rockets again. We had 21, which is also 22, which is also a bit of 23, and they were really close to, I think, adding the engines from 20. So it could have been the Franken-Rocket, but it was the Franken-Rocket that never was. But this is a Franken-Rocket that they might launch, because the flaps are from 22. Which, it's like, how do you call that? It's like a Franken-Rocket of a Franken-Rocket?
I think the answer is you refer to the ship by whatever its serial number plate is, and just like nose cone numbers no longer match ship numbers, flaps will no longer be expected to match ship numbers either.
Yeah.
Hence the term reusability.
I believe the correct word there is interchangeability.
For the purpose of reusability. Ha!
All right, so wanted to talk a little bit about this. Won't go into too much detail, but these are sheet piles. So let me go to the. I thought it was all organized in the same area there. So we've got this bit that has been taking place in the back of the build site. Let me actually grab an aerial photo as well while we're at it. So here's the build site. And then here's the area we're looking at right here with the sheet piles. This was an aerial view last week. They've added the additional corners, so it's basically all boxed in now, or almost all boxed in. The interesting thing is, like, what this could be for. I'm still loving the speculation idea that it is, like, the Boring Company is coming into town. And the crazy thing is I was looking up all the information on it just to see, like, what they could do. According to their own measurements of like their capabilities, they could start building the boring tunnel within 48 hours as soon as they come in. And I was looking also through some different articles to figure out like what news has occurred on this. And there was a little bit of a nice article from I think it was the Statesman, or it was the Brownsville Herald, from Stephen Clark. He talked about specifically the Boring Company was in communication with the county and talked specifically about putting in a boring tunnel like between here and South Padre Island. One of the ideas was to bring it all the way to there's an area of South Padre Island, which is the South Shore. They were thinking of getting it to Isla Blanca Park, I believe. And the really interesting part is like that's pretty short. It's shorter than it was for the distance of the Vegas tunnel, but you'd have to go deeper under the canal. That's a major hurdle, but I still love the idea that this could be a boring tunnel, like the start of one. Another thing they had talked about at the same time, this was in December that they were talking about this, was putting in basically a transport between the two locations, going from basically South Padre Island to Starbase, doing something like hovercraft. And they did. And we're seeing this, and this could be the boring tunnel. But this would not be with any city or state or county funding. This would basically just be SpaceX would be funding it to basically say, hey, we'd like to buy a $58 million tunnel from the Boring Company, one of Elon's sibling companies, and that would be huge. It's like very futuristic to think about, is you've got tunnels going from one place to the other. I would hope that they would also, if they're going to South Padre Island, go over to Port Isabel as well, because that would avoid traffic for any workers at Port Isabel, and this would mostly be for SpaceX workers and other small loads that could go through here. But I would suspect it would be like Cybertrucks, Teslas only. I don't think they want any basically hydrocarbons or petrol vehicles in the tunnels, because you'd have to then have a whole exhaust system to manage that a lot more. But it's an interesting idea. It would save them so much time. You'd basically be able to get here within 10 minutes or so, versus I think it's like a 30-minute boat ride by the hovercraft, or up to like an hour and 15 or an hour and a half drive from South Padre Island. So they can really reduce those times if they are wanting to do a boring tunnel here. And it would be like a 12-foot boring tunnel would be probably what they'd use. So that's the Proof Rock TBM that they're looking at, which would be like the version 2. Anyways, just a interesting thought. I'm hoping that they're going for that, but no direct evidence of it yet until there is, which just cross my fingers and hoping for something cool. With that, I think we're wrapped up on this side of the site. Was there anything else, Zach or Dave, that you guys wanted to mention or go over?
Not so much on the build site. I haven't seen a lot of other movement around there, other than all of the SPMT movements that we've seen over the last few days. But I'm just looking through these images really quick. Yeah, I think we may have covered everything at the build site. And from the ground,
new flaps. That's something Jax mentioned last night that I should mention here, that we've got new flaps. These should be forward flaps. Not sure which vehicle would. It should probably be, see, we've got 29, so these would be 30s.
and this was the first time we've had new flaps in close to a year, right?
Quite a while.
And he said that these will always be new, but they're probably going to reuse the other ones.
So if a ship gets scrapped, they will take off the flaps, stick it onto the next ship, unless the flaps are the thing that they're replacing, because the design changes so much on ships, and they're kind of getting more stable, which is good. All right, well, let's go ahead and head over to the integration site. And if we have any other questions about the build site or donations, we should go over those as well.
No donations at the moment, except for the $10 donation from Crane Man, who donated through PayPal and says, "Great show again. Snacks for Sunny. Regards, Crane Man." Mauricio?
Perfect. Crane Man has the crane yard while he's got the donation talked about.
Yeah, there's not that many questions here for the build time. This might be more towards Jax, but he isn't here. 55 Chevy guy asked, "Are slotted stringers new?" That was back when you all were covering the ring yard.
Yeah, I'm not very familiar with that one.
All right, we'll skip that one. The next one is from Benjamin Klein, and it says, "I have many sources saying that R2.5 is coming up soon. Can we see any new designs of ship or booster thrust pucks or structure of the vehicle to support more thrust?"
That would be definitely a Jack's question on the structural elements to see on the puck side. We'd have to see a new puck design or changes with stringers or additional stringers. We have seen additional stringers, let's say for boosters, but they're much further up, as if they're trying to hold boosters and ships without pressurization of the booster itself. So, like, that's a structural change, but it has not much to do with the direct change of Raptor. So, I think we'll probably start to see that here as far as changes to a Raptor 2.5 variant soon. So, Raptor 2.5, if I remember correctly, they're looking at around 245 to 250 on the ton scale versus Raptor 2, which is at 230 metric tons of thrust. So quite a significant difference. If they are getting up to that, indeed, 250 metric tons, that's huge. Like, the more you go up, you're increasing the chamber pressures and everything else to achieve that goal, and you're basically bleeding out every little bit of performance you can. That's a huge accomplishment if they're indeed getting to Raptor 2.5. But yeah, I haven't seen anything. So Jax would be the only other one who's not here that could answer that, unless Zach or Dave, you guys have seen it or heard anything?
I think they would have made a big deal about it if there was new thrust puck designs.
All right, well, with that, we're at the top of the hour, so on schedule that's good.
Actually, we're 15 minutes ahead, Thomas. We started a quarter after.
Oh, that's right. Wow, we're ahead of schedule. Nice. So, Zach, do you want to start us off? Is there anything on the launch site from the ground shots you want to go for first?
Well, I guess we are getting into those final preparations for launches we all are expecting. But yeah, I mean, we've had multiple tests of those new fire suppression system in the back of the tank farm. I guess, yeah, I guess you can consider that the back of the tank farm. But yeah, we've seen them test this, kind of spraying it towards the launch site. It's not for the launch site; it's mostly for the tank farm. But it's really interesting seeing how far they can cover with that system. So basically, all the way to the bunker, the fluids bunker, and then pretty much everything to the controls building as well too. So yeah, they are. It's really nice to just see that they have that ability to fight fires there, even though I'm not really sure like what out there would catch on fire because most of the stuff is like insulated and shielded. So, yeah, I guess there's always a chance of like, flying debris ending up in here. So, either way, it's still good to just have that capability because they did have that system on the landing pad, but definitely not of much use there anymore. So,
Well, I heard something very interesting. I think it was I asked you, Dave, last night, or maybe it was Philakid who mentioned this. But here's the fire suppression system. One of you two had said that the fire suppression system basically made it halfway to the orbital launch mount. They were spraying it from here to like over in this direction. Is this about right where it was hitting in this area?
They were spraying it towards the Tankenstein.
Oh, okay. So over to here.
Yeah, it was like reaching there and like falling straight down from there. It was like you could see the wind really grabbing it once it reached that point.
But still, that's like a good halfway distance. If you rotate it about here, it's really close.
Yeah, I mean, between the two of them, they can cover most of the tank farm. I mean, anything inside of the actual where the tanks are, obviously, you're not going to be able to do much about that. But yeah, it's still interesting to see that. I mean, I don't know if they have any use of just like spraying it before the launch just to have it going. You know what I mean? But it's probably only for if there's an actual fire within there. So.
In the past, we have seen them use the fire suppression system on the orbital launch. I'm sorry, not the orbital. Suborbital launch area. We've seen them go through, spray the hoses to verify the system works functionally for safety measures. So we have seen them do that before, but then they won't do it after. It's like, okay, you did it a year ago. You're still not going to do it. Nope. Okay. as long as it doesn't change and everything reads okay, they will continue to believe that it's okay. They might have like a 1 year or 2 year safety thing, but I haven't seen that. But it was only during the launch attempts that we're really paying attention there. And there's like this one and this one that you're talking about. That is really nice to see. The one that it's like you kind of have to have something in this area in here just for all of this. Like these are liquefied methane tanks, which have a lot of insulation in between the first shell, which this is a metal shell, and you'll have a insulation and then another metal shell. So there's quite a bit there to protect and basically prevent a discharge of methane and lots of heat. I think you have a video for me, Dave. Do you want me to pull that up?
I have a video from Kevin Randolph of Cosmic Perspective of the water test.
What about it?
And what about it?
Kevin Randolph is chief.
Yeah, sorry, you keep using first names for everybody. I think that was the. I just clicked on his name, not the the link directly. So this is the one here. Oh wow! Oh wow!
Way better than we saw on the launch pad back in the day.
Yeah, the launch pad. It's like I'm gonna get your feet wet while you're on fire. That's basically what it was doing.
So
Wow.
This is why I'm saying I suspect that those two containers over on the other end of the tank farm might be water pumps.
Oh wow, this is fantastic. And it's still keeping up pretty good pressure there, and they're rotating it as well. And then they turned that one off, and it didn't really... Oh, there's 3 of them? What?
Yep.
There's 4 of them. There's one on each corner, as far as I know. 2 on the street side, 2 on the...
Oh, he zoomed out right here, so it made it look like it changed, and it faded. Okay. I was like, there's one way over here, there's one in the middle. No, wait, there's 4 tanks. That was at the corner. That is impressive. I like it. Of course, you can see that the wind is hitting it and takes it the opposite direction. So if the wind was going with it, I could see it just continue all the way over. So it just really depends on weather. But they can go up to the berm. That is really nice to see. So thank you for Kevin Randolph from Cosmic Chief from What About It for posting that.
I think fires make their own weather too. So
Mm-hmm.
usually they're pulling air into them. So it probably works in the favor of the water.
Backdraft.
And they have a nice updraft too. They have they suck in air at the bottom and shoot it up at the top.
But so these HESCO barriers are an interesting thing that obviously these ones have been here for a while. But I think if you move forward a few images, you'll see that on the one on the left is probably a good one.
This one right here.
Yeah. So actually, let's go to the one that's after this because we can see the concrete wall first. Yeah. So they were initially building this concrete wall all the way over to the bottom of the launch pad, essentially. But it looks like they don't want to put the time into doing that right now, and they've resorted to filling up these HESCO barriers, which will be significantly faster. Right now, they're I don't know if they have like permanent concrete laying crews out here, but if they do, that crew's probably tied up at the Mega Bay right now. So instead of doing all that work out here, it's much easier to just fill up these sacks with dirt. So this is definitely a sign of, I guess, how fast they're moving to get ready for this launch. You know, there's definitely things that we're expecting them to do that they're putting off because they are unnecessary, I guess, to perform before launch. But you know, this is an interesting one to me because you know, without water deluge, I don't think they have much water to retain, and you know, it's basically the same amount of water that we have seen during any of the static fire tests, and it'll probably actually be less than that because more engines firing. So, you know, your water is just going to get vaporized pretty much immediately. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's kind of seems like almost a blast barrier to some degree, like preventing shrapnel from, you know, the concrete essentially being blown into the wetlands. And you can actually see like piles of that like concrete shrapnel in the wetlands over there. Yeah. So I think it could be that, like, they're trying to prevent that from happening because they're not, well, I don't know of a good way to really go clean that up unless you're removing it, actually desurfacing the whole thing. So, yeah, it seems like it's just a shrapnel barrier, essentially. But the funny thing about that is that I don't think these things are made to withstand that kind of brutality, you know? They're actually kind of close to the launch mount. If you go back to the other image, to the one to the left, you can kind of get a better idea of where they end up at.
Other left. So there's this one. This is the starting point, and it's kind of zoomed in.
Yeah, it looks like they're probably going to keep adding more of them.
I think so.
I see
let
a
me
backlight in the background too.
Let me bring up another link here just to show you and everybody else something real quick. So, I guess rabbit hole time again. Okay, so here's the edge that they are allowed to go to. That is the pink edge. So that is the 2020. I think it was 2020. Let me look up. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's the 2020 EIS boundary. Is this pink edge, and that's where basically the HESCO barriers can go up to because that's the silt fence. They've got such a limited and tight room right here that pretty much on this side, I almost expect them to put the HESCO barriers on top of the concrete because they can't go any further. There is no way to go any further than that, pretty much. There might be a little bit of soil to the right of it where basically the silt fence is because there's some issues there on the perspective with a flyover shot like this. But anyways, they pretty much follow that. And then there's this green line that also is the, what was this one again? Shoot. It's not showing on this side. But this is what they have been approved up to is this green line. So that pink one and then this green one, they can go through and actually utilize. And that's what they have done. So this entire area is filled in, and they're now doing all sorts of fun stuff. But anyways, I was looking at the PEA, and one thing that they're required to do is, this might not be directly for the first orbital launch, but like the second one, which should be coming up like a month or so after the first orbital launch, they will have the water. I think so. It's going to be pretty quick.
So no water deluge after the first launch?
I don't think. I think they're going to get the water deluge like almost ready, and then they just go crazy after the first launch, getting that water deluge built in. They're already running the pipes now, so it's like they're really wanting to push that. It could be that they're going to be above ground. We still haven't determined if they're going to be above ground, below ground, or in between for the deluge system itself. But you end up with this issue that you have to collect all of your water per the PEA. HESCO barriers are a good option for doing that until you get the Army Corps of Engineers approval to fill in the wetlands here, and you have to basically replace wetlands for wetlands. So somewhere else in this valley here, along the same, I guess you could say, Laguna Madre area, you will have to go through and create wetlands from highlands or something like that. So anyways, it's just it's going to be an interesting couple of months here.
I would be surprised if the second launch was within even 3 months, because I feel like there's going to be some repair work done on the launch mount one way or another. And I don't know. Then you have the whole static fire campaign of Booster 9, which is definitely going to take longer than a month, I feel like. Unless they ramp up faster because they're, more confident. Like that'd be crazy. What if they just start going like, straight to 33 when they're with their first static fire tests? Highly doubt that would happen. But yeah, I mean, maybe it'll definitely be a faster static fire campaign than what happened with Booster 7, because they were actually doing some pretty major work to the launch mount in between the 14 or the 11 engine test and the 33 engine test. So that whole time that happened in between there won't happen again. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's optimistic, and we still need a whole huge water tank for the actual deluge system too. So I don't know. I guess it really depends on whether or not they're going to wait for that.
I think they're not going to wait for the large water tank. They're going to do a compressed gas system to basically use the surge tanks as their main tanks until they go to a larger tank system.
Right.
And that larger tank system also gives them rapid cadence as well, which they don't have yet. So we're going to talk a little bit about something kind of off subject here, but it's about the launch here. So we do have an upcoming launch eventually within this month or next, sometime here in April. We have a bit better clue now. So there's a couple of things that have come out recently. Michael Sheets talked about on the 14th, he expects, per the inside rumors of like people at the FAA and SpaceX or something like that, that it looks to be that they'll get the launch license about that time.
Wait, and then on what day?
On the 14th. Now there's an earlier date or sets of dates that have just come out last night, which actually pulls that forward a little bit, at least for what SpaceX believes. So let me actually bring those up real quick. So Alex Physics, you guys might know him over at NSF, and I know that Mauricio knows him and talks to him, and I think they've been doing some other things recently on RGV, and that's pretty cool. The dates that we have is April 6th to April 12th is what these windows start from, but they go up to the 23rd, and these are basically for equivalent of almost saying we will have Note Mars out. We haven't quite issued them yet. This is stuff that will come out on Monday for the actual like Note Mars service and everything else. But what we have is basically a debris field of potential debris of a launch. So these are areas where it's like keep clear or watch out for.
Yeah, the blue is actually called the launch hazard field. The purple is the debris field, and they overlap.
Yeah, and then they even have one for Hawaii. So there's that one too. And this one is pretty much where they're aiming for. It's like right in the center of that spot, I suspect.
And then if you go to the other tweet that I left for you, there is a group that has calculated what the probable orbit is. Pop that. Oh, look at that. And that is the actual timeline. The numbers along there are how many minutes post-launch the Starship would be at each of those locations.
It'd take 85 minutes
90.
to get to Hawaii. Almost 90? Yeah. Wow.
90 minutes to Hawaii.
But it's going the long way.
Yeah.
Oh, that is very true. I'm thinking of the whole, like, we could get Starship anywhere in 45 minutes. Well, they're going the wrong way, so they're going the longest route possible.
Which makes sense. They want to test it out, make sure she works well.
Yeah. And this is long before we'll ever have the opportunity or chance for a point-to-point transport system, which is still very... well, Dave, you could probably put it best. What would you describe it as? A point-to-point system?
I describe it as sort of questionable just because it only works if you have offshore points. And the problem is by the time you get far enough offshore not to get people complaining about the noise, that trip from your shore side to your offshore side and boarding and everything else abrogates a fair part of the time you save by going point to point.
So optimistic, very optimistic to talk about the point-to-point stuff now. But this is a point-to-point, but it's a splashdown on both ends, or booster and Starship end.
So anyway, sometime in the next 30 days, there may be a lot of lights and noise happening in South Texas. Let's just put it that way.
In addition to all of us going down there and screaming our heads off.
Oh, man. This is going to be fantastic when they finally get the first orbital test flight. We were waiting for so long for SN8 to happen, and then it happened, and it was like so close, and it took a few more launches before they got to 15. Like 10 was really close. But we also heard another piece of information. Now we're talking about a lot of stuff here. 15, SpaceX put out a little notice. If I can find it, I posted so many pieces everywhere. I'm trying to go through and find the... here it is. So this is a SpaceX announcement that they talked a bit about what was going on with actually 15. What was it right here? I think this was right here. Okay, so yeah, this is the one right here. So it doesn't specifically mention 15, but this is the one that achieved the final landing. It had a loss of one Raptor engine and loss of pressure control in the fuel subtank. I had heard about the Raptor engine, but I had not heard about the fuel subtank. So that is quite a kind of a revelation that they just gave out that, oh yeah, there was some issues and the system was able to actually handle it pretty well despite these other issues that cropped up. That's really kind of enlightening in multiple ways.
So if people haven't seen it, yesterday, along with everything else going on, SpaceX updated the SpaceX website, and all of the a lot of the renderings are new or reorganized, and
Wrong.
No, I didn't say that all of them were new.
I like the metal grid fins that are shiny, I guess. I'm hoping those are stainless steel because they're not painted black.
White.
I'm not sure if they're white. They're at least
it has the chines.
How many chines?
It's got 4, but I don't see anything down at the bottom to say this is a. It's got chines and it has like hydraulics. No, it doesn't have that, so that's good. So this is more updated. It might be an older model,
and it's got the cowbell vents on it.
Yeah, right in there.
So these are definitely newer renderings.
Somebody pointed out the fact that the autogenous lines are both going to the methane tank.
Oh yeah, they just go to the methane tank for no reason.
I believe that somebody was you, wasn't it?
That was Jax, but it could have been Zach.
I thought it was Zach.
It was me.
There we go. That's better. I have to go through and actually get the image directly later, but this is pretty funny. Just goes right to here. Oh, well, this one actually goes all the way up.
That's right. One to the LOX, one to the methane. That looks correct.
It's above the common dome.
It would be. It goes into the top of the common dome.
No, this one should go to the LOX.
No, it wouldn't be. It should go to it should go right to the common dome. It's a little high.
Yeah, they both go to the methane tank. Okay.
At the bottom, one at the top. Hey, details.
A little detail like that shouldn't go into production, though. One thing I noticed that was interesting, that I guess this might be where some of the rumor came from. This says the thrust is 250 metric tons. I'm sorry, 230 metric tons. So that's the Raptor 2. But if you go through and look at the thrust of this, divide that up by the 6 engines that it has, the 3 vacuum and 3 sea level, you actually get that it's 250 each. So this implies that they're getting closer to that Raptor 2.5, and so I'm wondering if that's where this is coming from, or this came from the same area that the rumor came from that was mentioned earlier, that SpaceX might have that new Raptor 2.5 available. Anyways,
or that they get more thrust out of the vacuum Raptors than they were showing a sea level Raptor in the other picture.
Perhaps, yeah. The vacuums might be much more optimized, and you got a lot more bang for your buck out of it than you expect. So, anyways, that was a couple of rabbit holes I had to go down because that's a lot of good info. You just can't leave it hanging. There it is.
And there was a lot of disclaimers around Alex's post because, of course, that post came out right around midnight on April 1st, as he's explaining, but he's in Spain and they don't celebrate April Fool's Day.
I was thinking about finding a bot and bringing him in to basically talk like Elon. That never happened. We ran out of time. Would have been fun, though. Let's see here. Is there other things that we need to go over on the launch site, specifically the launch table? Actually, there's a ton on the launch table. So, Zach, are you still hanging with us here?
Well, I mean, I guess the big thing is the fact that S-24 is not near the launch table right now. It's interesting because if you look at these ground images, the images of the ground surrounding the launch mount, it looks like it's pretty clear of almost everything, other than the lifts that are over there. They got it pretty cleaned up.
A few little boxes and odds and ends over here, some scaffolding, birds. Okay, some cones, a trash can. But yeah, there is
a ladder.
The 2 ladders hiding away from.
No, there's one back where your trash cans were.
Oh, okay. Some more Hesco berries over there. Oh, those are the ones that are already existed. Never mind. But anyways, you're pointing out something that you're leading to, I guess, is that.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because it looks like they're ready for some sort of testing on the launch mount or near ready for it. What was that?
Exactly. I would expect that as well, based off what we're seeing.
Yeah, but the odd thing is that Ship 24 is parked near suborbital pad A, I believe.
Well, This could go 2 ways. One, they could say, well, we need to do another engine static fire. This one engine is just misbehaving. We'll keep the ship away from the booster for now. They'll static fire it, and then they'll stack it and go. Or it's just they decided not to put it at the cryo station for some reason, or the lift points to get it ready because there's maybe too much production going on in this area already. So one of those kinds of things could be playing into it.
It's just odd because the crane isn't holding it, and there's no way to really tie it down where it's at.
It's got the counterweight still, so its center of gravity is much lower, which is good.
Oh yeah, the SPMTs are still over there, right?
Yeah, SPMTs are basically holding onto the thing.
Yeah, it seems odd to me that it would stop there of all places, but I'm actually wondering if it may go to pad B first, but I don't really know of a good reason why. I mean, we did see some work happen inside of the nose cone, and that was on Jessica Kirsch's stream. I believe they were adding pipes into the nose cone. Actually, I think that was Starship Gazer who was showing that. It was one of the two. But yeah, they've added a few different little pipes inside of the nose cone. So I would expect that just requires, some sort of pressure test at least. But yeah, I mean, that's not to say that they can't just do that while it's on a full stack. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see what that next move is, if it goes straight to the launch mat or not.
You're kind of putting out something as well as if it goes to test stand B. Let's say they're doing a static fire for the ship instead of the booster, go the other route. They do have it pretty clean. The only thing I was looking for is there's another view kind of from the mud flats perspective. I keep missing it. I know I've got it somewhere in here. I guess it's right here, but close to it. Oh, here it is. It's my first image, pretty much. No, that's not it. That's pad A. No wonder I can't find it. I had to look at this one, which looked like pad A, which isn't. Okay, so there's scaffolding here and just a couple of welding gas cylinders and not much else in this area. It's also pretty clean. Oh man, this is getting very dicey because it could go either way. One of the ships could do another static fire before we have the launch.
The only thing on that side is you have all the wood catwalk along the berm.
Oh, that's all done now. It's just needs to be taken down. So just take out some nails and take out all the rest of the wood, and you're pretty much good to go for a static fire. So that's one thing that's actually changed since last week. They've finished the berm on this side. They finished all the concrete up to this point, and I think there's a formwork at the very top that it just needs a top cap to connect it on both sides. There might be a little bit more concrete, I think, on the other side that they need to do as well, but it's pretty close. And in some ways, I kind of hope for a static fire, but in others I don't. And if they do go for a ship static fire here at this test stand, one thing that we will need to see is my favorite little device here, the ship loader, or ship lift, 2-point lift system. So we will see this used for the first time. Other than that, I really don't think we would actually see it being used. I don't really expect to see them test 24 or the booster yet. We were hearing rumors of like, well, they could do another WDR or another static fire, go up to some number of engines. But I don't really see why that's necessary unless there is other data that says, oh, we missed this huge issue, which would be very negative. It would be like, yeah, we're not going to launch in April. We're going to launch in May. That would be kind of a downer.
Oh, there was that box on the landing pad that we should talk about, which is pretty cool.
All right, let me see if I've got the right area here. So it's down. Here we go. So you're talking about this area right here?
No,
Yeah,
that blue box.
This one, this box.
Up one row, that box right there.
Yeah, we've been looking at this box forever, and it's like, okay, this has got to be for sandblasting or something, because that's typically what a box like this would be for. And you've got filters in it, but no, they're for lights. And we kind of now know why the lights are there. In a way, the ship is supposed to launch between 6:28 a.m. and 11, and so before it does its launch, you can light it up at night or you've got the full stack. But the one part that's kind of a problem here is that it's turtle season right now, I think, or it's just finishing up, and so the hatchlings are either hatching or about to hatch soon. There's so many turtles and so many different seasons for the turtles too. But anyways, I don't know if they'd be able to do that without getting in trouble on the PEA side.
They just need to put that filter on it, the color filter.
Well, good point. If they go with a red filter, that'd be good.
I think we're just coming up on turtle season, and I think somebody saw a big orange rocket launch in Cape Canaveral recently with all the xenon lights left over from the shuttle and Saturn, and I think they want to light this puppy up for their launch.
Good point. Now, you talked a bit about this last night. The gels that you could stick on here. So these 4 points.
Yeah. You use a square frame with a round hole in the middle that holds colored filter media, and those lights have the clips on the front to hold those.
But you basically could change it to any color you want. You could go blue, you could go orange, or red.
All 300 to 400 theatrical colors available. Yes.
But something in the orange or red direction is preferable. So I talked to somebody who, this is ages ago, who was a marine biologist in the area, and he talked about the sea turtles, and we talked about the lights, and specifically Hoppy. Hoppy used to have red lights, and it's like, what are those for? And it's like, could those be used for the turtles? It's like, well, those by themselves maybe, but the rest of the lights say no. Because there were so many lights that you could basically read the newspaper across the street without like turning. It would just be the clouds basically have enough light bouncing off of them that you could look down and read the newspaper. So it was pretty bad as far as some of that lighting. But anyways, you would have to go through and change the color in order for basically the turtles to not go inland. You don't want them to think they're going towards the moon. You want them to say, well, that's not the moon. That's something else. I don't want to go near that.
But it's going to the moon.
Not this one. Wait a couple more rockets and we'll get there.
Do we know how many of these boxes they have?
By the way, I just noticed this. Stage 0. That is.
I was just going to call that out. Yeah, that's a Stage 0 department's welding gas supply.
You just need to go get your label and put Zach on everything here.
It's so funny because last night I was just waiting for that. I literally saw it. I was like, Zach. Oh wait, no, that's not what it says.
I think they had 4 of these enclosures, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if they survive, even though they're in that box, depending on, I guess, where they place them at. But yeah, it'll be really exciting to see it lit up. I mean, hopefully they leave it lit up for like 2 or 3 days before the launch. You know, that'll be like the sign that it's going to happen.
The bat signal, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
SpaceX signal.
Well, if I remember when these boxes came in, I spotted standard theatrical power distribution turtles in them. And looking on the lower part of that, they got twist lock connectors. So I got a feeling these things are going to be spaced 4 corners around the OLM, a fair distance away. Like by the test stand, cryo test fixture on one corner, over by the corner of the tank farm, maybe by the locks recovery pond, and I don't know what the fourth site would be, out in the dirt where it's all SpaceX property, maybe even.
So I just brought up the kind of just this overview. Can you repeat those locations again? So you said locks up here.
So like the 2 corners of the main berm, basically.
Be some over there.
Right. No. So right, yeah, there or even closer at the end of the main berm. Yep, like somewhere out in there, just peeking around so you can light the LM. One where the booster is in this shot. One where the liquid oxygen collection pond is. On the right side. On the right side.
I would just put it inside of the tank farm.
I'm wondering if it's like NASA, they want them on all 4 sides of the rocket so that all camera shots are lit from all directions. So you want a complete wrap around the OLM. So you need 4 locations, 90 degrees apart around the OLM.
Well, you'd probably want less than that because the tower would be kind of in the way. So you want to light a little bit of the tower, of course, but you don't want to light mostly the tower. You want to get mostly the ship and booster, right?
That's what I'm saying. That's why I said like by the locks collection pond off to the right.
Okay, so kind of following the straight line here, it would go kind of this way for like right here, somewhere in there.
I would put it. No, I think it's going to end up right where the cryo stand is, right by the methane tanks. Yep, right there.
Well, they'd have to be removed before launch, but
nope. They would get bolted down and just live there.
They would live for a very short time. But okay.
That's why they're in the enclosure, not out in the open.
I just don't think the enclosure is going to last.
Yeah. Not with all those rocks, the concrete flying everywhere.
Like, this could be some pretty good sturdy stuff, but it doesn't look too thick. I would expect to be a much thicker panes if they were expecting it to take those debris hits. Of course, you could also say a piece like this is behind a berm, but it's further back, so less debris hits. You could still have it there, I guess. Let's say at the Crow Station that you were mentioning. But it'd have to be kind of behind the berm, but it could still see the rest of the ship, but just not the blast zone, so to speak. Just my 2 cents. But you do have a pretty good eye for locating the lights there, because that's something you actually do as a professional hobby, right?
Yep. I mean, I'm sort of gauging also by where they have them at KSC, and the fact that, you know, the iconic shot of 39A or 39B with the rocket lit up is, you know, you've got the spotlight beams shining up from about 45 degrees away, and they do light all four sides of the rocket, or they light the circular rocket from all four sides.
Okay. One thing I just noticed,
rockets don't really have sides.
One shiny object I just noticed, we you remember those white boxes that were the dome knuckles we talked about before? They had the green spots, spray paint on them. These ones have the X on it that it's red. So it's like, these are emptied. What does it say it was? Various Starbase large raw tubes. Okay. So they've used up that large tubes. They're no longer that, probably, according to the large X, which, I don't know, do we paint over them after you're replace them with the same stuff, or just replace the label? I don't know. So earlier we were talking about the water, basically fire suppression system. Dave, do you think that they would be using these pipes to pressurize it, or not? Or Zach, either one.
I think those are actually the water feeds to the four nozzles.
Okay.
You don't pressurize it per se. You actually pump the water just like a water main.
You're just giving it throughput, and the pressure is the fact that it's closed and it's turned off. It's sitting there trying to push it, but nothing's moving, or you have resistance. That's pressure. Right? So it's really flow versus no flow. More bends you have, for instance, you'll have more resistance, which increases pressure. More vertical height, that would be head pressure, more pressure there as well. But the pump is just sitting there moving the entire time. But these seem to be thinner pipes. I did think they would be thick enough to be water lines like the ones we are seeing, for instance, at the corners for the fire suppression system that they have.
Yeah, I think those are for something else. Because all of the water usually runs through black steel pipes.
It's definitely an odd one because, like, for one thing, it looks like they've got a generator that's using methane as their fuel source to power some, looks like, pumps or generators inside of these two shipping containers here. But other than that, not a whole lot is known. You can see these pipes, they go through all the way to between the two water tanks, and then we can't track them from there. We can see that they go there, but we can't see where they go. They could go to the water tanks, or a water tank, but it could also go to plenty of other systems. It could go to nitrogen. It could go, technically, you could go to LOX, but I wouldn't expect that. I would expect more like nitrogen. If you're going to do some other pressurization of other systems, you might be able to use this, but I don't know. It's not definitive. The thin pipes is just odd. And I do agree with Zach that those thicker black pipes makes more sense. The one pipe I've seen that they've got buried, for instance, for the orbital launch mount, I saw a Snapchat video of somebody who took a video of the weld, and it was amazing. and the thickness on the weld was probably like half an inch thick for that pipe. And it was a pretty good sized diameter pipe. It was like 9 inches in diameter, so half an inch thick makes it inner diameter to be like 8.5 inches. But anyways, it was a pretty thick walled pipe, so there's a large amount of high pressure, and I think the fire hoses would be probably along those same lines. And then this has also got a piece right here. You were talking about this, Dave, that this tank is supposed to be for holding pressure. So it's like basically it has a bladder inside. So pressure doesn't suddenly increase or decrease too rapidly. Just like you have for your surge tanks in your basements for, let's say, thermal expansion tanks you have next to your water heater. This would be very similar to that. But the pipe diameter on this one's much bigger. Let's see if I've got any other good images here. Here we go. So yeah, we've got a line going in and out, and then we also have electrical conduit, and then I think this one's a like natural gas line or something, or maybe this one's it, or maybe I'm sorry, that's for the tank.
In the tank farm area, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Sometimes those stacked images get you, but it's this one up here. I think would go towards the vaporizers, so methane vaporizers. But I think it's coming in this way as methane coming in, and they pull in oxygen. Let me see if I can actually pull up. Here we go.
I'm expecting they're just probably natural gas fired internal combustion engines or pumps where the 4 lines fork to each trailer.
Oh, so you think you've got 4 pumps in here?
Yep, I'm betting we have 4 pumps and four natural gas engines or methane engines, and then the communications hut is all the control systems for it, and probably also the control systems for the nozzles.
What's interesting is they've got the real push power coming from methane. And you can do that. My uncle worked in an oil field. They used methane all the time to get those grasshoppers moving and fueled. So they're using natural gas to do that. And it's funny. It's like you've got all the power of fuel here, but you have to use another fuel system for the electrical side. This is the electrical hut, telecommunications hut, the old AT&T hut. But yeah, I do see that it comes in 4 different directions. But you would also have to do the same thing on the lower end, and I can kind of see that you've got 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep,
1, 2, 3, 4.
There's 4 uppers, and 4 lowers stacked there. So yeah.
I could see this as being the air in. So you have air intake, and then these would be exhaust here, 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 and here. But I don't see the other 2 air intakes on this side. Maybe that they're right here and right here. They're just in the shadows.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wagging it because this all seems to have been put in right before they put the new nozzles in.
Yeah, so this is where the lines go. They end up going in over here. And so it's like, okay, or at least this one goes over this direction. So
well, I would
the other
expect one would go over to the water tanks for a water supply, and the other ones I suspect goes directly to the pipes that go to the nozzles.
Well, I think I see a pipe right here that's a green pipe. Typically, those would be water pipes. If I'm looking at it right, maybe it's a silver one, but I think it looks green. And it goes to this one. So this is the view from last week on the flyover. But that wouldn't make any sense because this is the main water line right here. So that's the water input coming to this line. So, I mean, if it would be coming from anywhere, it would be coming from like the center of these tanks. Let's say there's a T going, one going this way and one going this way for the water lines. If it is indeed that same line. So it goes all the way back here, goes here, and comes back over to here, which is kind of backwards, but at least you get equal pressure on both sides. Zach, what do you think on this? Do you think we might be on the right track or on the wrong track, in your opinion?
I'm not sure. I've been trying to figure that one out. It's really still eluding me, but not sure.
The only reason I'm saying that is given the obvious pressure behind those nozzles in Chief's video, they're not being gravity fed. There are some big fire pumps somewhere that are feeding those nozzles.
We got 4 pumps right here based off of what we can see and speculate off of. So I think that does hold water, pun intended. It's just we do need to find, like, as evidenced, we need to find like the water line going either as an input coming into this area, which that would basically prove, yes, it's water going in, so water must be going out. Or we have to see on the outside where these particular fire hoses are attached to. So that would be kind of neat to go through and find just that one little bit of evidence. It's like, oh, there we go, we've got it. Because unfortunately, it's all buried back here inside of these water tanks in the center aisle right here. So Mauricio, if you go on your next flyover and it's a perfectly clear day, you get the best shots, try get a direct flyover of these tanks and the very center of all of it. I know you've done it on the booster many times. You're really good at it. You'd have to get it on this one to completely get the answer to that question. It would have to also be closer to somewhere around noon or a little bit later. So a little bit later in the evening, if you have a choice. The weather, of course, makes the choices typically for you. What do you think, Mauricio?
Sounds good. We're scheduled for Thursday and Friday again, and the following week as well. So hopefully the weather cooperates this week.
Yeah, you've made multiple attempts to make the flyover happen this week. Even today, you were looking at doing a flyover like right at noon and coming out with photos the last quarter here, the last half of the show. It's been basically the weather all week has been terrible, right?
Right. We tried Thursday, Friday, and like you mentioned today as well. Today was really close because as we canceled about an hour and a half later, it started to clear up. So, but that's just the thing about the weather. You can't really predict what it's going to be like, even like in an hour or two from now. So, but hopefully we get lucky next week.
Yeah, I'm keeping my fingers crossed for that and hoping we do actually get that flyover here, because there is so many things that have changed each week. It's like you blink, you miss it. Sometimes you have pipes that are put in the ground and buried 2 days later, and it's like we don't know what was in there. We don't know how many. We don't know where they go. We just know in that general area there was pipes. So it's always an interesting kind of view when that happens. It's that you have to retrospectively understand like what's going on. You can get some of the evidence, but not all of it. So, Zach, there anything else that you wanted to go over on the launch table? I've got a few things I can talk about, but I'm pretty sure you could talk about some other things here too.
I was kind of just looking around. There is just one really odd thing that I've been staring at here for a while. There's a really weird security camera down there. I don't think you'll be able to see it from that image. You'll have to look for one of the images closer to taken from near Starhopper.
Okay, so that direction.
Is this on the guard shack or where?
It's
so from over here.
Yeah, one of those. That's not looking far enough over.
So I need to be in
That
here,
one right
or
there. Yeah,
okay.
Look underneath the left leg, the left side. Yeah.
Oh wow, right there. That one's not going to last long at all.
Is that what you call a disposable camera?
It looks like it's just temporarily there for, not even for the launch, but like just to watch underneath the booster just until the launch.
I think it's temporary either way.
Yeah, that's a typical lightweight security camera. Yeah, it won't stand up to a hammer, much less a rocket.
Yeah, those cost what, $40?
Oh, that's probably a $200 one, but
It's disposable in SpaceX's opinion, especially if you get the launch viewed from that. Like, hey, the engines are lit up and the camera caught it. And that was it. The camera died after that. And you're lucky at that point.
Given the camera that Mauricio found out in the middle of the mud flats, yeah, this one has got no life expectancy whatsoever.
Allegedly, Dave. Allegedly.
I did have a comment on, now that we're at this image. There was this one guy on Twitter that said that that I think that the Starship first stage engines are ignited. It must receive permission from the orbital launch mount before it is allowed to throttle up. Zach, do you know anything about that, or do you mind commenting?
He's quoting my tweet, and I'm not going to talk about it right now. I'm in the middle of writing an episode about that, but yeah, I know where he's going with that.
Well, what's pretty funny is the way that you worded that tweet. It makes me think of the rocket knows where you are.
The missile?
The missile, yeah.
Honestly, after I posted that, I was thinking about it. Like, it does know where it's at, but it doesn't at the same time. Like, it only knows so much about itself while it's sitting there.
It knows where it's at because it knows where it isn't. It subtracts where it is from where it isn't by the deviation. That one's always so funny. Okay, so I'll just put out some quick things to note here. Okay, what happened to the guy that was the safety harness that this went to? First off, the scaffolding's gone, as well as the brackets here. It seems to be about every other one.
He left his sprite up there.
But they, they still do. What was that?
He left his sprite up there.
Yeah. Well, now I can measure that pipe perfectly. Hooray. It's an old joke. But anyways, the one thing that really bugs me is these. They have them on this side going all the way about, halfway? Let me see if I got the other side view here. Yeah, here we go. So those basically continue up until about here, then they just kind of stop. There's no more after, I think it was this one. And these were what we were expecting to see panels to be hanging off of to cover up some of this stuff on the lower sections, right, Zach?
Yeah, I'm wondering if, and I also left it open for the possibility that these are just floor supports, and I'm still thinking that it is possible that that's what they are, because there was basically a ring going all the way around for the walkway, like the edge of the walkway, and initially it looked like they were welding these the gray colored ones, that they were welding them to that walkway, but then the walkway got removed because they also removed the handrails. So I think because the handrails got removed, these are replacing the support that was given by that outer edge that they had around the walkway.
Well, the floor itself is in kind of two sections, right? So you've got the main walkway section, which I think they replaced all of that or most of it. And then there is these little sections between the, maybe get a little bit better perspective, between that main walkway that's in here and then this little gap between. And it seems like this is the connector between the two, so that you don't have your corners falling in and having issues with the lip of the corner of the floor, for instance. And you can also see that it's at the seam of each one of these. I was kind of pointing that out with my mouse a little bit ago, that each one of those has the seam. It's at each one of those. So that does explain kind of where it's like every other one, but it's not every other one. It's this one, this one, this one. They're all with the seam. So maybe we got that a bit backwards, because I agreed that it looked like these would be for the putting panels on there, and I'd be like, oh, this is great. We're getting panels finally to cover up the rest of it, and it's going to look a little bit more like a donut. But that's not the route it looks like they're going.
Yeah, what's really odd is the frame that they have around the other leg, that where it does look like a panel will go on. It's the one on the right, but you can't see it from this angle.
Okay, I have to go down to the bottom then. So here.
Yeah, that one. So I mean, it looks like a panel's supposed to go on top of that, but at the same time, it also looks like it's holding up the floor.
Yeah, this one it's
But
that
why?
little piece right there. It's at the gap again. They're all at the gaps.
Well, I mean, the whole big frame down there.
Yeah. This is not to hold up the floor. This is something else. I kind of theory crafted yesterday that we have the system as a dual stage, or I'm sorry, you said it was pre-launch, post-launch, Dave. As far as the staging of the water deluge system, and one of the ideas that's been floating around for a while, and I don't like it, but now I've got a little bit of evidence to say, it could go that direction. Is you could basically put in your water deluge system up here for part of the water deluge system. So this is the area between here and here. These two spots is where they bring in the SPMTs. What if you have your deluge between these two spots? That could be the bracket that starts to hold all of that, and that's for a later point. Just a theory. Could be also that they just have the pipe go up vertically and needs to connect to here and go up around the outside up to here and then aim towards the center of the launch mount. That's also another direction they could go. But it's going to take a little bit more effort and evidence of the future to show which way they go with this. Because it doesn't quite fit with the frame here either. I would expect if it was for framing with something like this, that it would be at the edges, and it's not. So Indian Star or Mauricio, do you either have questions or donations you want to bring up here? Because we're down to our last about 15 minutes here.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I have questions here. Sorry about that. So the first question is from Stephen Lewis. Where would the deluge water come from, and will there be a water tower?
All right, so deluge water would be coming from here first off, I think. And then there's also a good guess that it could come from this pad where they would basically install a water tower or tank, kind of what like they have at 39A. Is that something you'd agree with, Zach? Dave?
It's really tough to tell. I mean, wait, sorry, you said with the water tower?
He's basically asking where the water would come from for the deluge system.
Oh,
so.
Definitely from a water tower.
Okay.
Of some sorts.
Dave, what do you think?
I will say tower or storage tank, probably located where that raised pad is.
Okay.
And of course, I have plenty of crow to be able to retract that statement at any moment.
I'm going to go with both. I think they're going to start off with a pressure-fed system, so all of these high gas pressure cylinder COPVs basically will basically be used to drive water pressure from what should be water hammer tanks to basically use the water in the tanks and the pipes to do your water deluge, but it won't be much, and that'll be for the first the second flight, the third flight kind of thing, and then maybe 6 months down the road, if it starts, next month or this month, we might see the let's say a water tank appear or start to appear here for the foundation. It would take at least 6 months to build this, and so the kind of the evidence I have for the first part, if it's going to be a water deluge system that's just pressure fed, actually comes from Slick 40. So on Slick 40, they have had a system that was just like that, but it was removed. So it had basically tanks here, just like these, with COPVs that were pressured gas to drive all of the rest of the water for their water deluge system. I have to actually go to Google Earth to find that and get the correct historical map of that, because it's now very different from what it used to be. And then the other one would be actually the water tank. 39A would look a lot like the one that should go here as far as the dimensions. It would fit. So I'm hoping that that's the case as well. Looks like my computer's freezing or something. Oh, it just won't move because I wasn't zoomed in. So I'm still good. Okay.
We have another question from Spock X. Will they fill the gaps at the top of the leg cladding before launch?
The top of what?
The leg cladding on the OLM?
For the maybe the staircase.
Maybe he refers to the gaps that are at the very top of the legs. Those, maybe?
That's something we've been talking about and thinking that they would do, but it's not 100% necessary. This is basically the diverter, this entire bit right here. So flames are going to be hitting the roof, diverting it off, and you will still get some wash, some heat going into these areas. Hopefully no debris with things on fire, because that has happened and they've had to use the fire X system to put it out. And it actually did work, so that was good. But other than that, right now it doesn't look like they will. It looks like they're done for now. All the scaffolding's gone. Everything would be in place to potentially hang things to, at least on this side, but not the rest of it.
All right, and then we have another question here from Sharpie. Is the HPU cover sloping top had increased obtuse-wise after the swap?
So you're talking about the HPU cover here. If anything, it's just this right here. It looks like they've gone through and added a little bit of material, but otherwise the slope should be the same. It's got the same internal structure. But so this quick bit to say that this is the HPU cover with the HP unit. So that's hydraulic power unit. It drives the thrust vector control actuators on the engine. So it basically just is hydraulic rams. They push really hard in two different directions to move the engines. And then on it, they actually have two Starlink terminals. But I don't think there is any difference between these ones from before and after as far as the cover. But the HPU units, I think, are coming from Booster 8. They got donated.
All right, and the last question is from Ike. If S25 went to pad B, how would it be lifted onto the pad?
It would basically have to have these to be lifted onto the pad. So you have basically a piece that comes out right here. So it has to be manually turned right now. You could turn this into a remotely automated system to basically remove the pins remotely. But anyways, you have these two. You've got two of these, one on each side. So there's one right here and there's one right here. And they're being lifted by this point. So this is the top direction. This is the bottom down here. But this would be where the pin insets. And so you just use the lift pins that you have, let's say, like on the chopsticks, where it has those flip out pins that lift the ship. This basically would do the same thing, and you're just using a crane, a load spreader like this one right here, and a bunch of rope, basically, and that'll work. Going back to that previous part, I was talking about the water deluge. I pulled it up real quick. This is Slick 40, how it used to be. You've got those COPVs and water hammer tanks, but you don't have a large water tank anywhere. This is your water deluge system. So Starship could very well use a very comparable system to what they had at Slick 40. Just a quick note.
Shall we run through the donations real fast?
Yes, please.
So we wanted to welcome Jeffrey Cornish, who just became an RGV flight member. Welcome to the crew. And then we received a £5 donation from Space Junkie, who says, "Your work, guys, are hugely appreciated. Thank you. Greetings from the largest Hungarian Starship fan community. Hashtags Team Space." And then Jim Cabot donated $5 and says, "Love the content and the presentation. Thank you all for your generosity." Back to you, Thomas.
Thank you. It's been great hosting today, really striving. Indian Star, you're the one actually hosting the stream here. So it's been a lot of work to get to this point today. We had some issues this morning, but we got over them.
It's just called April Fool's Day.
Yeah. Your computer fooled you. I mean, everything's just ready to get us. So watch out. Make sure your water doesn't get you when you open up the water on the faucet later today. Because my family like to put rubber band on the sprayers, for instance. So you get a nice little shower when you go get a drink of water. You got a lot more you bargained for.
That's like saran wrap on the walkways. That's like high level.
Yeah, wow, that one's a lot higher level than what we do. We just find a rubber band. It's like, okay, done, and we all do it. So it's like there's already a rubber band on here, and then you forget that there's already a rubber band, and you turn it on later, or you do it to yourself, basically. Well, with that, we don't have any other questions? We could wrap it up, unless you've got anything else, Zach or Dave, that you want to bring up that we haven't already.
Well, I think that about covers it for me. I'm really excited for this next few days, and hopefully we'll get a lot of news this week about what we should expect going forward, and get a better idea when this actual launch is going to happen.
Yeah, I'll second that motion. Keep your eyes, ears, and internet peeled for tweets, notices, notice to aviators, notice to mariners, road closures. I mean, I think we're going to see a lot of stuff happening. At least from what I saw yesterday, the notice to mariners, the office is only open on the weekdays, so that all may hit on Monday.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of interesting to see how like all this stuff pops up and gets changed or modified or addendums to, basically, to say that they've changed their minds on exactly which days that they're really pushing for. But we do know that it goes all the way up to the 23rd of April. So there's a pretty good range of the window currently. So like April 20th, there's still a chance. I did actually have a question that goes along those same lines from a friend. Phil Kohler asked, can you confirm or deny that SpaceX needs to provide a 7-day notice to the general public prior to an orbital launch? So I went through and redug up all of the information I could find on the PEA. So they are required to give the county a 7-day prior notice to basically the road closures for launch or pretty much really any activity. But that doesn't mean that the county has to go through and relay that information on their website immediately. Because if it's like, well, we've got a potential these days as a potential closure, the county doesn't say, well, all of these are potential closures. Some of the time it looks like they are putting it down as like 3 or 4 days before the closure. So either SpaceX is letting them know either before or too early or too late, I'm sorry, for the closures, or the county's holding on to it. And that seems to happen especially during the weekends. So you'll have a weekend that appears and it doesn't go up on the website because there's nobody in the office to update the website. So on Monday, just as Dave said, a bunch of closures and notices will appear, especially from the county or wherever. And then the other part of it is there is some amount of time that is not defined in the PEA that the SpaceX will go through and talk to or actually do a direct news broadcast or have notified news broadcasters of the launch. So they will go through and talk to them about it and say, this is either the days that we're looking at. But the big thing that they're going to basically go through and do is a notice about, you may hear an overpressure event or sonic booms. So these are the things to listen for or look out for when you're going to watch these activities. Stay away from windows and stay away from the launch site on those days because it's going to be closed anyways, so you won't be able to get to the beach. Those kinds of things. So that's going to be the really like threading the needle. We're going to see something interesting at that last week prior to launch, and I don't think we're at the 6th because that's one of the days that it says it's like the notices for the Mariners is the 6th through the 12th, and it's like that's a little too early. The FAA guy, or at least Michael Sheet says the FAA guys are saying it's going to be the 14th or so, and so it's going to be somewhere around probably the 10th, 12th, 14th, all the way through to maybe the end of April on the 23rd, as far as what the current documentation states. It's going to be exciting soon.
Exciting for sure.
Well, with that, do we want to go ahead and give our sign-offs?
Yeah, sounds about right.
Okay, well, I'll start off, and it's been great talking to everybody today and going through all these images. I'll hand it off to you first, Indian Star.
Okay, thanks for joining us this week. Hopefully you'll join us next week, and hopefully the weather permitting, we'll have some flyover photos. Mauricio?
Yes, thanks everybody for joining us today, and thank you for the donations and contributions for the flights. And hopefully, like Indian Star said, hopefully there's good weather for us on the scheduled dates and times. And the last thing is, I might even start the campaign to start getting Elon's attention so that we can get him on the show sooner than expected. Initially, I was planning on doing it for episode 69, but that would actually put it on the 15th. So we're going to need a lot of help with that to try and get him sooner, or maybe on the 15th should be fine. I just hope that he starts tweeting more about Starship related stuff, because we're going to have to keep an eye on that, right? He'll definitely tweet something, so we just have to be on the lookout for that. But other than that, thank you very much for joining us today, and I'll pass it along to Dave or Zach.
All right. Well, I guess I will take it from here. Thank you, everybody, for coming this week. Excited to be here, as always, with you every Saturday. So hopefully we will, like I said before, have some great news next week. And I'm excited to be here then as well. So we'll see you all then. Dave?
And thank you, everybody. And thanks to Mauricio, Zach, Thomas, Indian Star, and in my best Grandpa Joe imitation here, main engine cutoff, stage separation confirmed. Love you, bye.